All right, the time is 6:12. I will call this UMA meeting officially to order. Since tonight that we're not looking to do we're not looking to take any votes. This is just a working session. I don't think there's any need for a roll call unless you guys want to, but I'm pretty sure we don't need one. And I will turn this over. Well, all right, so I'll just keep talking at this point. So you know what? Maybe I will call a roll call. All right. For those members that are in attendance in person, we have Emmanuel Marsh, the board president.
Jonathan Beckmeyer, vice president.
Felicia Ryan, development specialist, staff.
Eden Garhart Smith, treasurer.
Lori Ardai, clerk.
James Mudge, staff.
And on Zoom, joining us virtually from parts
Jennifer
unknown. And board member.
Board member.
All right, now with our introductions and welcoming remarks, I will turn this over to our executive director, Tina Lagarde, for her guidance for tonight. Oh, and please make sure everybody's phone's on silent too, please, so that we don't get interrupted.
Excellent note, sir. Okay, well, thank you all for making time in your very busy schedules to follow up on what I felt was a pretty fantastic first work session. I don't know, Edie, did you get a chance to watch it?
I didn't.
Oh, it's riveting television, so you'll want to watch it. I actually printed off my like a facilitator's guide for myself to keep us moving forward. My hope is to keep tonight's meeting under 90 minutes, so we can all go home to our families, etc., etc. So,
is it helpful for me to help the time, like to say we've got 15 minutes left, or
if you'd like to,
it's up to you if that's helpful. I just don't want to derail you in mid-process.
Nope. And we're not stuck to a certain time frame either. If we accomplish what we're trying to accomplish with less time, then let's move forward, right?
And of course, if the discussion sounds like it's going in a good place, I would also say, we don't have to just stop it just because it's like 20 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But our goal is not to be here for another 3-4 hours, right?
Yes.
That is also true too.
So just as a reminder, and I am going to apologize, my voice is still really messed up, so it might go in or out. For tonight's meeting, the purpose is this meeting builds on the momentum of the strategic plan, the first work session that we did, and focuses on identifying the board capacity and governance structure needed to support successful implementation of UMA's strategic plan. The goal is not to revisit operational details of the plan, but to clarify how the board of directors supports the work of the organization through governance, recruitment, fundraising, and community engagement. Staff participation remains important throughout this discussion to help ground the conversation in the realities of our organization day-to-day work. All right. So that was actually not the script I was supposed to read. Sorry. Let's start again. Thank you everyone for being here tonight. So this is a lot better. Our first work session helped us accomplish something really important. It got us aligned around UMA's strategic plan and allowed us to hear where energy and excitement exist across the organization. That conversation showed that we're moving in the same direction and that there is real momentum around the work that is ahead of us. Tonight's conversation builds on that foundation. The purpose of this meeting is not to revisit the strategic plan itself or to get into day-to-day operational decisions. Much of the implementation of the strategic plan will be led by staff and the executive director. Instead, tonight's focus is on something equally important, making sure UMA has the board capacity, governance structure, and leadership support needed to help that plan succeed. In other words, the role of the board is to help create the conditions that allow the strategic plan to be successful. Staff perspective is especially valuable in this conversation because it helps ground our thinking in the realities of our organization's work. My hope is that by the end of tonight, we will have a clearer sense of A, what the organization needs from its board, B, which board committees should be most active right now, and C, how the board can best support the strategic plan moving forward, right? So before we begin tonight, a few norms, simple guidelines. Everyone participates, no one dominates. We've been pretty good about that. We focus on governance and organizational support, not operational decisions. And if something important comes up that's outside of tonight's focus, we'll capture it in the parking lot, right? So I asked that Lori send the board members and the staff receive the same email, kind of ask with a few prompts about time, talent, and treasure. And so the first item that we're going to focus on tonight is what I'd like us to think about what the organization needs from its board, not who is doing what currently, but what UMA needs moving forward. This is about identifying the kinds of engagement, skills, and resources that will strengthen this board and help support the strategic plan moving forward. I'd like everyone to take about 2 minutes to reflect on the time, talent, and treasure prompts that you were provided. You'll have a worksheet too, in case you didn't have time, and I'm going to be doing this with you as well. And think about not only what you could offer in these categories or what you think the organization needs from you in these categories, but also what you think we need in these categories, right? So I'll just go through the description real quick, and then everybody will take about 2 minutes to kind of reflect on that. So this brief reflection is meant to guide our conversation about how board members can contribute their time, skills, and support, while also helping identify areas where UMA may benefit from additional capacity as we work together to advance the plan. All right. So timing, just kidding. It'll take about 2 minutes to do that.
Gotta be with more than 2 minutes.
It has been. They're slower than okay. Trying to decide if I want to write in black or red, red seems like
Red's too, it's like,
oppressive,
yeah.
but also dynamic, right?
I think it's fine. I mean, everything else is in black, so, or most of it.
Yeah.
And it changes up the colors.
How about we write in blue and then black here? Just cuts. Okay. So we're gonna kick this off and people can jump in. But as far as the time, right? So, pausing the phone if this would have been. What did people put down for time? So what types of engagement does UMA most need from its board right now? And some examples could be community participation, community representation, event attendance, advocacy, mentoring or advising, relationship building. Go ahead and just shout them out, whatever you got.
Yes, all of them.
Yeah.
I think
Let's-
that's,
let's
Community
see.
rep and participation, definitely. It's engaging the community is basically the,
Okay, so I
Full-on.
just need to list them out, so give me
Oh.
one at a time, whatever you want.
Community representation and participation.
I said community trust. Community trust.
Mhm.
That's a good one.
What does participation mean? What does that
Getting,
mean?
getting more community members engaged and involved with them. in
But I
one
think it
way or the
also
other.
means the board participating in more things outside of UMA.
Events.
Meanwhile, wearing a UMA hat in some capacity.
Mhm.
So that's the community representation. So if you're out in the community
Okay.
as a UMA board member, that's representing
Okay.
UMA.
Okay,
But event attendance, I think is important. That's what, one of the ones I put on there.
Outside events or inside events?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, I think outside
Uh,
actually.
When you say, meaning,
Yes.
oh, I just had it. Sorry, come back to me. I lost it. I had it on the tip of my tongue and I lost it.
so you all know we do like marketing booths at like Pride and Juneteenth and all of that. And we desperately need board members to be actively involved with that because right now we don't have a lot of volunteer opportunities here at UMA. But we're actively recruiting for our board and our subcommittees, right? So our board members should be signing up for those booths every time we have one to talk about the board and how to get on board on that.
But isn't a board, I mean, I get the booth, right? But I know I don't really want to go up to a booth. Like I'd rather, and I'm not saying it has to be either or, but like the library, the Friends of Malden Public Library are having a wine tasting. Like I'd rather no booths there, right? Like
Right.
have somebody from the board show up or attend more.
what
I
I'm
don't know
saying,
how,
both.
yeah, it's like
We need
balance,
both.
right?
Right?
I think though, if that's your comfort and you're willing to go to an event like that and talk about
I
it in
do,
that
but
same
it's hard
capacity.
to talk about UMA when you don't have the booth there to kind of announce who you are, but yeah, you can talk. It's a balance, right? Like, I don't know.
It can also be casual conversations
yeah.
too.
And I think those are more important, but that's just me.
Let's go.
The booths are ways to hear what the community's questions are, like what do you do? What does media arts mean? Oh, did you used to be MATV? Like just,
Yeah,
you get to
okay.
hear a little bit about what their questions are, and that also I think is, I mean, you've done the booths before. Did you
Mhm.
find it valuable? Like, how did you?
I think so. I mean, it's really hard, like you're saying, it's just hard to engage people when you're in a booth too, I think. And I think for me too, it's more of a casual thing. Where you know people and you have conversations like at other events. I don't know, that's just me. It's helpful to be out there, to be seen. But I just don't know. I can't put a value on it. I don't know.
Well, I think booths, I think when you walk by a booth, people probably think you're trying to sell them something, right? Like those window
Totally.
people, right? Or
Yeah.
like the solar panels, so it's probably not sometimes most inviting.
I love the idea of it being representative in the community is if you have an UMA shirt and you go to one of those community events.
Right.
Mhm.
and you're flipping around because you're curious about a different table or
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
whatever, and we're just gonna possibly naturally ask you a question about what UMA is.
Right.
You know, or we would have like an UMA volunteer day where we send ourselves out and to do a community event and we're all wearing UMA shirts or like whatever it is. It doesn't have to be you selling UMA. It's you talking about
We're gonna
UMA.
talk
The,
more about that, all of this
Mhm.
right here.
Okay.
The one
So
thing-
right now, I wanna pull the football
Pull
back
it
to
Got it.
One-
what we need.
yeah, one thing that I did last year at the Maplewood Fest was I wasn't there as UMA directly, but when I had kids that it seemed to be around the right age for the summer program, I was leading them over to Tina and Jenny, who were there actually representing UMA. So it's just like working together to get the word out about the programming and different things.
And that was good because you had something focused you could talk about.
Mhm.
So I think exploring a little bit more about what community representation means, because that meant very different things to very different people. So I think in and of itself, it could mean nothing or it could mean very different things.
I mean, to me, it means so
Yeah,
many
event
different things.
attendance, well, it leads to event attendance or, sorry,
But not just that, but talking about UMA, you know?
okay,
Like, I've had multiple conversations with people in the community who are worried about UMA since we've done the reduction in staff. And I have talked to them and said, I'm not worried about UMA and here's why. Right? We've got a, really great strategic plan in place. We've gotten our budget under control. We know what we need to do and what we can't be doing right now. And the people are like, oh, that's good to hear. Well, what do you have going on right now? And then we talk about the youth workshops, so like that kind of community interaction, that kind of representation is really important too. Right? Because you all are probably having conversations about UMA at some point with somebody in the community and being able to be on the same page, talking about what's going on as a board member, you're educating the community about where we're at right now. So it's not just going to an event to promote UMA, it's just talking about it.
I also think too, for like, especially, I keep going back to like the whole what's gonna happen in a couple of weeks from now, and
you can't even say it.
no, the props over. No, I don't care. I can talk about till the blue in the face, but trying to establish that UMA is a place that wants to host both people who are for it and like, in favor of it and also against it, right? So like, we're not a vessel or a talking point for city councilors or for the mayor, or we're a vessel for whatever. It's like trying to tell people that this is your community space and that this is neutral grounds for everybody, and to use this resource and to use this for your outreach. Whether they take me up on it, I mean, some have not. But I mean, just let them know that, the vision of your community access television place is a hub for, connecting ideas or connecting viewpoints and making sure that people still understand that that's still here and to use that resource. So time to me is, going back to like, community participation or community representation. I think it's so broad, and I think if you break it down, I think even that element of it as well is reminding people that it should still be on the top of your mind that this place is still here. And again, whether you want to use it or not, that's a whole different. It's a whole different. That's a whole
Different
story.
conversation, I
Yeah,
think, yeah.
at that point.
What could go under here too, is things like advocacy, right?
Yeah,
So that's talking to our counselors, to the mayor, to the state representatives, all the way up to potentially federal.
I think even community
People.
organizers, you say.
Community organizers, talking to other nonprofit organizations about how we can partner together and continue to move forward, right? So advocacy, but when I talk about advocacy, I'm mostly talking about like the bills that are in the Senate right now. We don't have the bandwidth to reach out to all the people that have impact on these bills, but maybe you could, organize a phone call thing, whatever, or email blast or something, that kind of thing. What else, James? What did you put down for time?
So we have a scrappy board of 6 people.
Yes.
How can we increase that number? And I didn't know what category to put that under. I put it under time, but maybe that's better served under talent.
I think, I think that's exactly where this goes, is time.
Yeah.
We need people that have time on their hands to join our board, right? So I would say board members.
Scrappy board members.
Thanks.
That doesn't look like crappy.
I see that.
It looks like a parenthesis.
All right. So we need people that can commit their time to our organization, right? That's a great point. What else in time? Jenny, do you have anything in time?
I don't know, she heard us.
Jenny, did you have anything in the time category?
You're muted.
You're
I think
muted.
you're muted.
Sorry, it takes me a minute to find that button. I just listening to you, I was thinking though that, it'd be good to come up with maybe just like a page, like hey! Sorry. A summary of talking points. I have to deal with this in a second. Talking points of what we've accomplished and what our plans are.
Just so you know, half of those were our dogs, so, that might go under talent, maybe, you think?
What's sort of
Kim-
like what board members need from us or what they want in terms of how to talk about UMA? Like, do you need to spend a couple hours here and kind of see what we do? Like, what does the day-to-day look like for us? Do you want to come to one of the your youth workshops? Do you want to know more about what our fundraising plans look like? Do you want to know the kind of equipment that James has on the wish list? Where is it that you feel like you could plug in most?
Yeah, I pretty much had something like that for the board to be positive and aligned with what the UMA needs are in ways, like, probably comes up more often when it's not as good, but what to say to people when, like, how UMA's working on things or what's going on.
And
So
I
that
think
we're kind
that's
of all on the
Jenny's
same
point, right?
page.
It's just having like a one sheet that
Yeah.
when people ask you a question,
Okay, so
and
that's an actionable item, and
Right.
that's not where we're focusing on right now, so.
Too far ahead.
What we're gonna do is actually move talking points down to the parking lot, all right? And one pager, because we know we want that, we've talked about it, right? Does anybody have anything else under time right now?
I feel like community representation, is that anything internal too, right? Like creating new events, right? Not just like new UMA events. Like would that fall under that rather than, I feel like- what?
I said, I put that as treasurer, excuse me.
Oh,
not
treasure,
I
got
put
it.
that
Okay,
under
never
treasurer.
mind. I don't know.
No, I see your point.
I
see-
feel like, okay, part of it is me or anyone, going to current events that are already scheduled or will be scheduled in the near future and representing UMA. But the idea that, UMA does they at least have done and did it this last time with the youth where we play the films, like that's something that I feel is very UMA centric, but creating more of those like UMA centric kind of, whether it's in the, here or out on the street kind of election night, like those are UMA, like
So I'm gonna put down creating UMA events right
Okay.
now. Okay,
thanks.
I think that's fantastic.
I don't think that's an organization need though,
Oh, it absolutely is. Absolutely it is.
to create more events.
Absolutely. Events is very broad. We know we want to do media mixers. We need help. I wouldn't even say create. I would actually say assist with. We need help with our annual meeting, right? We need
Hell, we need
help
help
with
with
state of
election
the
night
city.
coverage.
We
Right,
need-
yeah.
All right,
To the election
So
night
you're
coverage,
saying,
we need
like,
help with
this-
that.
the staff will create the event, but you're looking for the board to assist with the events,
Not
not create it.
necessarily.
Yeah.
Again, this is all conceptual right now, right? we know we get asked all the time, are you doing a workshop on this, or this? If we had board members that could teach workshops, how amazing would that be, right? I am not looking to put any ownership on any of this right now. There's no ownership. This is, let's talk about what UMA needs,
Right.
you know, time. I would, you know, let's move on to talent right now because I have a whole list in my head of what we need for talent, and maybe that will help, you know, streamline the conversation a little bit. So for me, I know for a fact it would be really beneficial to have somebody with legal expertise on our board, but it's not a priority to me. What is a priority to me is somebody either with a finance background or a fund development background. Now, not to say even your.
No, that's fine. I take no. It's fine.
It's 2 words, that's why it's funny. But you know what would be even more amazing if we could get somebody on our board, especially with the strategic plan and the direction it's going, is somebody that has a strong background in educational development.
Mhm.
Right? That would be an asset that we could really utilize with this new plan.
Or a teacher.
Just identifying who's who.
What else?
Youth.
Let's put legal in here just because we don't want to forget it.
Doesn't mean.
So under talent, I had, I already got legal and technical, expertise.
What do you mean by technical?
An engineer, a software developer. A youth, a gamer.
Youth and gamer or youth gamer?
Either
Two
or,
different
and or.
things.
And or,
I've been saying for years.
I mean,
would
we've
like to
talked
have
about the
a
high
youth
school.
voice on our board.
yeah.
I would say anybody who's into the gaming community would be great.
James, you're here every day. What do you think? For talent, like what would be nice to have on our board for talent that we could lean on when we need some expertise?
I think the item that I had on here belonged more in time.
Okay.
I was just thinking about like the film festivals that we used to run. And just how that brought the community together.
So like, yeah, film expert like Tom.
Not
necessarily him, but some-
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Someone who's like in the film community. Well, we already have John.
Is there like a professional way to say somebody who just is unemployed but has a lot of expertise, or I don't know. Like you have to have the time. Like you can find an
Yeah.
engineer or
Right.
you can find a finance fund development, but it's like they need to have.
I promise you,
Sorry.
I have a point to all of this. when we're
Sorry,
done.
it's just like
You're about 6 steps ahead of me right now.
Sorry, like-
Somebody who's a retiree.
Yeah, I don't know, something,
Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah, that's what I would say.
I get that you want somebody engaged, like you just don't want like a beating heart kind of thing.
No,
But you know, like if you have a good, I don't know, if they don't need a day job, right? Or for whatever reason, and they can be here more often, I think that would be helpful. Whatever expertise they have, or, you
so
know,
let me give you an example. UMA has a strong need to have its website audited. And we found an expert web developer or software developer who is volunteering his times on nights and weekends to do that, right? You could find an engineer or a tech expert that might want to do it.
Does he want to be on the board?
But you might be, through the board, you could identify projects, and then that could be a way you could recruit people, is ask them to help out on a specific type of thing. And then maybe down the road, you know, and invite them to join the board.
Where else do you see, what area? Lori, did you put down anything?
No, I thought we were just doing time.
Oh, no, we're doing it all. You have thoughts? What kind of talent we need for the board? You've been on this board for a while, you know.
I mean, it changes a lot, but like sometimes just putting out a call, like when you were talking about the lights, I was like, oh, Mike knows lights because he worked in that field. So if you can put it out there, like, and maybe get somebody who can come in for that one thing, and then you get to meet people and might learn more and get people on the board that way.
I also, sorry, let Lori finish
That's
your
it.
thought, but
That was.
That's right.
okay. I don't know. I think a visionary too, because where I have a tough time with UMA, or I struggle. I know we have a lot of positives, but I also worry like sometimes the old TV name that, you know, is still attached to us is something that is not needed with everybody that has a phone and can record all the time. But like, how do you have somebody that kind of can move forward? I don't like, yes, podcasting and things like that, but I don't know, like to
Modernizing?
maybe, but I know that's like Tina's purview, but I just feel like I don't know how to say it, like how to
Marketing?
That's what I was gonna say.
marketing,
It's a
yeah.
marketing slash, working with sponsors like we talked about, somebody that has that experience.
Because if I wrong, like, at least recently I've seen some of, and I don't mean to get, and we can talk about it later, parking lot, but like, you know, recordings of government television, which is important and I'm glad we do, and it is like a definite positive, but it almost feels like, can counselors do that themselves and then it gets like attached to the meeting? Well, I've seen it attached to meetings, some of those subcommittee meetings that they
Yeah, we
have.
could do that, but
Yeah.
a full council legally can't,
Okay, got it.
for
So,
transparency purposes.
okay, so, yeah,
Part of our mandate is PEG. It's
okay,
a Public education government.
okay.
And we're required through our contract with the city to cover certain types of
Okay.
things, yeah.
So it's part of the open meeting laws, there's like caveats to that.
I think too, like, how many ways do we talk to you about the plans that we have, or Tina's executive updates, which are probably fairly dense, or the fact that we've had a feasibility study and a technical audit, and we know what needs to be replaced, but we don't have the money for it. We want to modernize the facility. We have 6 grant applications in process right now to find money to do those types of things. So in terms of a board, yeah, we would love to have energy, time, treasure, talent, but how can we also provide that information to you all so you feel like you could plug in some way? Because I'm hearing you're not.
Sometimes I just, because I feel like, oh, if they could put a little icon, like why is, you know, they can record it themselves with Teams, like why is it, I mean, I understand we have a contract and that's, you know, keeps the council and probably school committee meetings like on YouTube or with UMA support, but the rest of them can, you know, they could do it. And if there wasn't that contract, could they technically do it themselves? No. I mean, clearly they could do the other meetings, they could technically
Yeah,
like,
subcommittee's fine, but your full committee, you don't. want
okay.
that.
But they have the technology to do so,
They
is my
could,
point.
Yes, they could. but
And
you
that's
don't.
where I feel like UMA used to have the powerhouse, like they used to be the ones with the technology to do that, and now it's,
We don't own the technology at City Hall.
right, it's
But
just
we
more
are-
readily
We're
available.
asked
To
to
use
use
it.
their
The
technology. And we're
so-
also not owning their meetings. We are broadcasting their meetings or recording their
Yeah,
meetings.
for
for
political-
Sorry,
broadcast.
I'm
for
getting
campaign-
stuck in the weeds and we're
For
looking at
campaign
time.
purposes, you don't want
So,
that.
thank you.
I
I want to take a moment and not forget that we have somebody online. Jenny, did you have any thoughts on what the board needs for talent right now? And I'm pretty sure you probably can't read this. It says finance, fund development, education development, legal, youth, engineer or tech expert, gamer, film, or marketing and social media.
I mean, that's pretty much kind of covers the gambit, I think. Yeah, no additions.
And I had like software developer engineer because I feel like someone with like Hilda's background who has project management kind of, but maybe in a different industry.
Project management would be fantastic on
Yeah.
our board, wouldn't it?
And you've done some of that, right, too?
very little, but yeah.
I'm thinking of some of the skills like prior board members have had. Like one was like more of an art background, which could be
Artists would be
useful for
fantastic.
Yeah,
when you
sure.
do different art stuff.
So I want to pull the focus back in a little bit. And when you're thinking about this, we are thinking about that 3-year strategic plan, but right now we're talking about year one. So year one, you have a little handout just outlining what year one is. I think we've hit almost every area on year one of where we have a need for the talent. So if everybody's comfortable with this, we can move on to treasure, but I want to make sure, John, did you have anything in talent? that we're missing?
The only other thing I would mention is that I think it's important to have a diverse board.
That's a good one.
And that's, you know, ethnically diverse, but also, I mean, obviously, we're trying to get experience diverse.
I think
but-
that's a perfect kickoff to our treasure.
All right, let's go.
That's a treasure. That's
Yeah.
something that we could find great value in, right? So when we're thinking about treasure, we're not just thinking about money, but we're primarily thinking about money. But things like a diverse board, the more voices, I've been saying it for years, we get
Yeah.
people to fill out these subcommittees, that means we've got more voices, right? That's a good thing. More representation.
I think, I put just an age difference demographic, like it. So that could be youth, that could be folks from different neighborhoods, that could be perhaps folks that are already working through different neighborhood organizations or coalitions, that could float in and out a person. Like having somebody be able to talk about us in Linden versus Maplewood versus downtown is a helpful thing. Or even outside of the city.
So what else did we have for treasure?
You want my list?
Well, yeah, I want to
I
hear
think you're
your
the most
list. 'cause-
appropriate person
yeah.
to kick off the list. Yeah.
Yeah, so I had to help identify partnering organizations.
Hold
And
on, I gotta write all this down. Identify partners.
yes,
Okay.
help us find donors.
I'm just gonna say partners, donors,
Help us find grant opportunities.
grants.
And I said, give an annual donation.
Give. Okay. For me, I put down with our updated bylaws, all of our board members are required to be members. If you are not an UMA member right now, you should be. So make sure that your membership has not lapsed. Doesn't matter what type of membership you have with us, you just have to be a member to be on our board.
Am I a member? Can I ask?
I know, can
You
we
are,
ask?
yep, because we updated yours. recently.
Yeah.
Am
I
I?
know, I'm trying to remember.
Yes.
I'm like.
Am I updated?
I think everybody
Oh my
on the board, with the exception of one, actually 2 are not members currently.
Okay, as long as I'm good, I don't care. I mean, as long as you're pointing at me, I don't know.
But see, that goes back to that governance piece of like, you're asking me,
Yeah,
am
that's
I a
true.
member?
Right.
So what that means, I gotta go figure
Yeah,
out if
that's
you're a
true.
member,
That's true.
right?
Okay.
Where you could log in and find out if your
Sure,
membership's
right.
right there,
Yeah.
right? So.
But I didn't know if like a
Probably
monthly
denied for
payment
so
is
many
the
years.
same as a membership or, whatever giving.
No, we do annual. We do
Okay.
the annual.
Okay,
So that is one way to
Yeah,
give.
so-
Right.
It's just your membership.
Okay.
However, we would hope that you would want to give a little more if you
Okay.
could, if you're capable.
Got it.
I think time too is if you are an UMA member, activate your membership in some way so that at the basics, you know how to use the RuShare system. That you've been trained in some type of equipment. Maybe you don't need that training, but you might.
Oh, we do.
Or that, even just vaguely, I think the most fun is just coming in and like sitting down and recording our voices.
Hmm.
So I'm happy to do that with you, but it's just anyway, like, obviously you're very comfortable in the studio, you've been in for workshops, you've been in for events and board meetings, but like, imagine if you knew how to run the Zoom for us,
Right.
or like any little bit could be helpful. And we're getting a new playback system, so of course, the technology will be nice and tidy for us.
James, did you have anything under treasure?
I was thinking about a relationship with like Senator Lewis.
Yeah.
He's
It just-
gone.
He's leaving though.
Right, and how is that going to impact us now? I mean, he was very good at like, oh, Senator Lewis, look at the big hole in our ceiling, we need, and it's like, hey, no problem, we'll give you an earmark for that. So I was just thinking about those relationships
Well, we have to
and
build
how
those.
how can we continue fostering it?
You are, right?
I
It
know.
is
Who's the new person,
either between Council O'Malley or State Rep
Kate.
Carabinian, yeah,
Yeah.
gonna have to build those.
It's just those two.
So
Oh,
far,
Democratic side, yeah.
I think others may
Yeah.
eventually.
that's early.
So
Just have to
relationships.
start.
Yeah.
Relationship.
Yes.
Catherine Clark's office is 5 doors down, like, anybody got a relationship with her? Why isn't she at UMA more often? I know I see her out in the parking lot all the time,
She's on DC.
right? Right, but
You should tackle her then. and bring her
Yeah,
back.
exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
tackling is good. We should put that as like a talent.
In a scrappy kind of
who
way.
knows Mark Wahlberg, right?
Yeah.
I don't.
Like,
I
Yeah,
don't think I wanted to.
I was doing that so Jenny would.
Oh.
I laughed. I was just on mute.
So Jenny, did you have anything down for treasure?
Pepper did.
Putting that
We
dog
should
up for
add
adoption.
dogs. in
Good
there
idea.
somewhere.
Put that dog
Who
for
said that?
adoption.
Like a dog event.
Kidding.
I had a thought and I lost it. Come back to me.
Is that Piper?
Sounds like that.
Yes. No, that stinker. She's mad because she's not petting her constantly. Even though she's holding her in the papoose, I'm sure.
So I have
Oh, there she is.
double duty as I'm the vice president of the Chamber of Commerce for Malden. So I leverage that constantly by hearing what's happening, things in the community. Hey, did you know? Oh, this huge city got this huge grant, got accepted to this huge program. One of the only reasons we are at the table is because I heard about it at a board meeting. So when you're out and about in the community, hearing about things and bringing them back and seeing how can we leverage this in some way,
Mhm.
may or may not
Yeah,
fit.
no, it's all.
But
Right, yeah.
I didn't, and I was immediately like, please consider us,
Right.
because I knew that would be an opportunity that we could, make happen and really would benefit both.
To your point where, whether or not, it's a good fit or something, it's information that we can evaluate, right? I think.
Hey, did you hear so and
Yeah.
so's running for office?
Well,
Great,
and-
have them come in and do, have them join as an UMA member and come and do some sort of campaign conversation, or, hey, maybe they would want to be part of a Q&A around filling that seat,
Well, actually, you just took that because, as I was saying, I think during the last meeting, whenever the last time I was here, that talking something along what both of you guys are talking about with Rep. Altrino, right? When I talked to him before his surgery, that he said that he's never been invited to UMA to do like a kind of what we did with Jason Lewis back in November. He said nobody's ever reached out to him. So, I mean, I think he's back to normal now, but yeah, working with Jason, excuse me,
I've
with,
had conversations with him.
no, that's what he told me. Listen, that's what, but hold on, but to your point though,
Finish your
right?
thought.
But to your point about, and even that was something with, when talking with Aaliyah too as well about, and I said to her, I said, after all the signatures are in to fill in this vacancy left by Jason Lewis, we should have these because Malden holds 60% of the seat,
Oh.
that we should be inviting those who are officially on the ballot and eligible to run. We should be doing something like that to get to know who they are and invite them in.
Yes, of
But same thing
course.
also too, doing the legislative update with Beacon Hill again, with our
Mhm.
state delegation, right? And also, we had talked about at one point or another that hopefully after this Prop 2 override, but even same thing with our city councilors as well too, whoever the city council president is, or whoever the vice chairperson of the school committee is, right? So it's
We're
trying
talking
to.
action items again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know, but what
But
what I'm trying to say though is
Parking lot.
to these point, no, what I'm saying is to the points of what were just raised up, is that this is what some of the things they're trying to put into action.
That's what the leveraging of the
Right.
time, talent, and treasure looks like, but it doesn't have to be like trying to go out and sell UMA to the community. It can be like hearing about something, and then like Lori brought up a funding opportunity last year. You did some funding research for me, which was really helpful, like that kind of stuff. Like it just it helps us know that like yes, we know you're paying attention and you put in the volunteer time and you care,
Mm.
but also that information kind of will get our wheels spinning and thinking like outside the box, like partnering organizations, you may know of one or two, they could write us into a grant that I don't have to write, or they could be wanting to join as an organizational member.
Well, and something I actually written down for treasurer was actually, again, going back to the idea of having like an open house. So outside of just the annual meetings, and actually I was talking about this with Jonathan too. Last week was trying to do like all of us collaborate and think about what should we do for another mixer, right? So outside of just being open for the annual meeting, should we do one more event, right? Start off small. Maybe do one mixer. Obviously, we have the annual meeting. That's 2 meetings, right? That's 2 open houses, I should say, to get people through the door. And then do you build off that? That now there are people who are kind of like, hey, they're opening again. They're actually having people come in here again. Like, would you be interested in that way? So we almost have them come to us. I know it's been talked about before, but it's just finally trying
Are
to
you
put this to
saying events
fruition.
are a treasure?
To come have it be coming here? Yeah, I think so.
Because we have events up in time.
But I also think it's also a treasure too, because you're
Yeah.
showing people that you're opening your door to, you're opening your door to have people come in.
You're saying the events that are
Fundraising.
hosted at UMA.
Yeah,
Like,
have your
on
own, like have
property.
UMA, like us as like, us as the organization, put something on to have people come through the door so that they'll, see we're actually still here. Now you
I would
charge people, I
also
don't know. That's all.
caveat on that though, and say that we're partnering on events. Like we got written into a grant for traveling controller who's doing this big gaming event, right? Like you could probably, not a lot, but just briefly talk about it. And he was in today to coordinate something because we're the fiscal agent. And he's like, okay, so we're gonna put UMA's logo on things, but we were thinking maybe we'd like to engage you a little bit more. Absolutely, that's treasure right there, right?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
we are getting more and more organizations that are thinking like that. We need to call UMA. We've got Creative Malden, we've got the CCC, that's treasure.
Works.
Yep.
And we
Mass
continue to
Eye.
build on that, you know?
Yep.
Jenny, did you remember what your point was?
Yeah, maybe this fits in it, and maybe it doesn't, but just keeping an eye on that legislation that could go through where we could get funding from, internet or, what am I trying to say?
Around
The streaming.
around streaming funds.
Yes. Just keeping an eye on it, keeping up to date on the information, and finding opportunities wherever we can to, write a letter, tell a story, contact folks more about, about seeing that this could actually go through in the future.
And put state bills down.
Can our
Yeah.
board members be on mass access?
I don't know. I'm looking. All right, we're way over time on this. But look at what we did as a team. We identified as a team what this organization needs. Right, as from the board. So and a lot of these pair up, right?
Yeah.
So advocacy goes with the state bills, legal. Just board members that got time, but it would be nice to have board members that have one of these backgrounds, wouldn't it? And are interested in engaging in this treasure aspect of it. One thing we didn't put down here is somebody with money. Honestly,
Loaded.
This is Malden.
I'm just gonna put money.
Sugar mama or sugar dad.
Yeah.
whatever.
We need money.
Sugar person. How
We're
about that?
specifically looking for someone who has a DAF, which is a donor advised fund.
There we go.
I was like, what is that?
I realized another thing
I look for
was,
that every day.
anyone that, for talent, nonprofit management would be nice.
Yep.
I mean, I'm pretty awesome, but I can always take pointers, right? So this is really great. What I'm gonna do is take a photo of this and kind of organize it, and we're gonna, now we kind of know, based off of our strategic plan and all of our thoughts, where our needs lie. And if you think about this for a second, I'm coming up on my 4-year anniversary. We've never identified this in 4 years that I've been here. So that's progress right there. Right? That's great.
Just so we know, or everyone knows, I think it's worth knowing, Robin Inman is gave donor advised funds. I believe they've been featured on WBUR. So
Oh,
like,
yeah.
she's here in
Yeah.
Malden, and I heard her voice come over
Yeah,
the
So did
radio.
I. Yeah,
And
I
so
forgot
just
about
so
that.
you said donor advised funds, and I'm like, well, I know somebody,
Oh.
but.
There you go.
I
how
forgot,
do
I
you
heard
build
her
up
like a
a
month
I
ago.
don't
That's
know.
right.
Can somebody like very briefly explain what the fund is?
It's like having sort of a planned giving fund so that you get a tax break, but also you also can, it's probably a sizable amount of money that you're putting in there. You get to live off some of it, but you also get to direct it, and you have to spend it down before you pass, or have at least plans to have it spent. So.
I mean, I try to find that every day of my life. So far, no
I
luck.
heard her voice, and I'm like, I know who that is.
Yeah, I heard her. I heard her
Yes.
too. On the,
Yeah.
yeah, I did hear her too. It was like a month
Yeah.
ago, and I was like, oh, I know her. I was like, shit.
It's been a while, like a year, I think.
Yes,
It's been
you're
playing for a while.
When it first
Robin
came on the
Inman,
air,
yeah.
I
Robin
immediately was like,
Inman.
I said it to
Inman,
you.
Yeah, yeah, she's very nice.
Yeah,
she-
Sorry.
you've seen
Like,
her.
I know
Carlton,
somebody.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
exactly
she's
what
been
it
here.
is.
Actually, she's been inside. Yeah, she's been here. Yeah,
She comes frequently.
I was gonna say either she was here for the annual meeting or she was here for
Yeah,
one of the mixers. I
she was a
thought.
good friend of the
She's-
station.
Yeah, she's
years
been in
ago.
there. Yeah, yeah.
She's part
Robin-
of the reinvigorated creative Malden
Malden
Arts.
Arts.
Yeah,
Yeah, Robin's very nice.
I bought blueberries from her. She has blueberries.
All right, now we really are getting off
Sorry.
topic.
I have action
But areas
items
of
over here.
interest.
Buy blueberries.
Yes, areas
Buy
of interest. Right,
blueberries.
yes.
All right, so next, something we've been talking about for quite some time, we need chairs for our subcommittees, right? How about we take a step back and go, what are our subcommittees? So there's a printout in your packet that talks about each one of our subcommittees, and we're gonna go through this. And now that we know what the organization needs, we have our strategic plan for just year one, okay? 2026, which we're currently in. I want you to tell me which top three, well, it's not really fair because executive
It has to
doesn't
be there.
really, executive is required,
Mandatory.
right?
I'm getting a question. Do you have to have committees? Is it part of your board governance?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a few that are mandatory.
And are they, and committees are, people can be on a committee without being on the board?
Yes.
Yeah, as a subcommittee member, yes,
Subcommittee,
yes.
Okay, and are you looking at the committees in that way to fill?
I think we're just looking to fill in the committees first. And then you would, then probably think about getting the subcommittees at that point.
See, and that,
You want,
No.
you want board members before you want committee members?
yeah,
Ideally, we like all of the above, but if the priority right now is to just fill out, especially how thin we are right now with board members, you would want board members to fill in these
that's gonna be
committees.
part about this conversation.
And
Okay,
then,
so
then
give me a
after
minute
that,
And we'll get into that, okay?
Okay.
So you have a handout. We're gonna talk about this. You can't, executive committee never goes away, right? Because that's basically the officers of the board. I'm not gonna dive deep into that, but they go into executive sessions to make decisions about like my contract or disciplinary decisions or whatever, or about the organization. So that's an automatic, it never goes away. Finance committee is it supports the financial health and fiscal oversight of the organization. The key areas of focus are to review the financial statements and reports, monitor budgets and financial planning, support financial transparency and accountability, and assist with long-term financial sustainable planning. So now for quite some time, that's been a committee of basically one, right?
Because even when Brian was here, like I was, as much as I was on it, there were no meetings that I attended or
Right.
anything in terms of training or oversight.
The personnel committee supports human resources practices and personnel policies for the organization. So they look over our personnel policies and make sure that they're, up to snuff and maybe make recommendations, that kind of thing. They support the executive director in the evaluation process, which that means if, especially in a leadership role, when we have directors within the organization, the ED will do the annual review, but the personnel committee might come together and look at those reviews and provide feedback on like goal sets or something like that, right? And then they can provide guidance on staffing structures and HR policies, but guidance, they're not dictating. So that's the personnel committee. That's when, if we need help with HR stuff. So that's why, did we put HR in there? I didn't even put HR in.
Personnel slash HR.
Then we have the programming committee, which the purpose of that is to support the development and impact of UMa's educational and community and media programming. What does that mean? So they advise on program development and community impact, support outreach to program participants and partners, and identify opportunities for new programs or collaborations. I see this as a very large subcommittee if we ever get to my dream of what it should be, because again, we want as many voices to the table on that, saying, okay, I went out and talked to my neighborhood last week and said, hey, UMa's looking at wanting to do some workshops. What do you think would be really cool? And they bring that back to the committee and they talk to the committee about that. The committee makes a report and presents it. Right? So then we're hearing, if we got 20 people at the table, we're probably hearing 200 voices in our community, right? If they talk to 10 people that month. So that's what the programming committee is. Nominating committee supports board recruitment, onboarding, and leadership development. They identify and recruit prospective board members, support orientation and onboarding of new board members, and review board composition and leadership succession. Eamon, I'm going to have you read the last two for me.
So, membership committee. The purpose of this is to support the engagement and growth of UMa's membership and community participation. So the key areas of focus would be to strengthen the connections with UMA members and community participants, support member outreach and engagement, and advise on membership opportunities and policies. The next one will be the development committee. The purpose of this committee is to support fundraising, resource development, and to strengthen UMA's financial sustainability. Key areas of focus: support fundraising, campaigns, and donor engagement. Identify potential funding opportunities and help connect UMA with community partners, community supporters, sponsors, and partners.
So now that we've identified some of the capacity the organization needs from its board, the next question is how that happens structurally, right? UMA already has several standing committees, and tonight we want to discuss which committees should be most active right now to support our current strategic plan. So going around the table, which of these committees feels most important to activate or prioritize this year? And we'll do 1, 2, 3, like first, second, third, right? Let's start with Felicia. And again, this ignore it.
So I can't say exactly that.
No, that's
Because
a
of
given.
that,
It has to be.
You legally can't have that, not have that.
Can I just say something before we go around and do this? You'll find that I'm always trying to simplify things. That's just how my mind works. And when I look at this, it's like a subcommittee and all, to me, it's not much, but to me, it's like, how can we simplify this? With the small staff that we have, with the small board that we have. And Emmanuel and I were kind of talking about this, like, do we need all these committees? Can we put them to sleep? And I know that's where you're going with this, right? Can we put a few to sleep?
I'm not actually going that way.
Oh, okay.
No, we need every one of these committees at some point.
At
Oh.
some point.
I was gonna say, if we're gonna.
At
hold
some
some
point.
of
And
it-
At
that's
some
what the
point.
point of this
Right.
Yes,
conversation
that's the
is.
word
Which one should we be focusing on right now?
nominating.
None of these are going away.
Nominated.
No, and I'm not saying, I guess I'm not saying go away, but every board meeting that we have, we can have a line item that says, let's talk about finance, let's talk about, membership and development.
Which we don't, because we don't have subcommittees. We don't even have chairs for the subcommittees.
No, I know. I guess I just think that everybody can bring their own to these things without
What about
having
your
a
thought?
subcommittee.
You've got something there, like.
There is
continue
something,
What
yeah.
you're saying.
No, I'm just trying to simplify it so that we don't have to have all these committees with a small board. We
So you mean
just don't have the board to fill in all of these. And it's like 1 member, 2 members. I feel like if you're gonna do a subcommittee,
So you mean to like basically what can we be rolled, what almost overlaps in the sense, right, that you can almost more or less.
kind of, yeah.
For right now condense, and then when you have more members, you can actually flesh it out more to have however many it is.
I mean, I think membership and development, as much as they're important and when we're larger, I think are kind of similar, but I didn't
that's-
want to go, I
Can
wanted
we
to say
go through this
nominating. but-
Exercise,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
this is exactly the conversation we're supposed to be having after the exercise.
Sorry.
Y'all are
Nominating,
Jumping, we're jumping.
we need
sorry.
more people.
Yeah.
yucking my vibe,
That's
man.
all I'll
That's what.
say.
Yeah. So Felicia, if you were to pick your top 3 subcommittees outside of executive committee, which ones do you think is the most important to focus on right now? The second most and the third most?
I'm still stuck where Jonathan is, like, I'm like trying to combine them in my head because I feel like.
Okay, Eden,
Nominating,
thank you.
gosh, like
Nominating.
3
Yeah.
stars, I just, like, you can
Yeah.
fill
Number
everything.
2. What's your number 2?
I would almost say nominating, but I'll go finance since it's mine.
Okay.
And I feel like, yeah, and then programming. Sorry, personnel, you guys might need help, and I'm sorry,
Okay.
but
Jenny, what's your number 1?
Membership.
You think membership should be the first thing we focus on? Okay.
No.
That's awesome.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking at,
Yeah, right.
Do you have the list in front of you?
I do, I'm looking at them. I would say, I don't know, finance?
Your number 1 is finance? What's number
Yeah.
2?
And then nominating. And then membership.
Okay. Thank you. Lori.
Nominating. Programming and finance.
Okay. James, what do you think?
Nomination,
Okay.
finance, development.
Development.
Probably gonna be the only one.
I say number 1 is financially. Number 2, I think, is personnel.
Martina,
No, I mean,
No, that's
listen,
fine.
that's just the labor relations person in me. And then I would say
You
number
have to
3
think
is
about our
nominating.
strategic plan.
Yeah, but hard to unlearn what you learn. Hard to unlearn what I had to do for a day job for a long time. And number 3 is nominating.
John.
I would say nominating, development, and programming.
Okay. You ready?
Finance. Programming. Development.
Just me left?
That's it.
It's nominating. Development. And finance. You see a pattern here? So we've already determined very quickly that nominating and finance are our top 2 subcommittees that really need to be activated right now. Right? We got 1, 2, 3 number 1s, 2 number 2s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 number 1s, and nominating. What's our priority? Bringing more board members on, right? That's the whole job of the nominating committee, is to organize that effort. And then, I don't know, it's kind of a tie between
It's a tie
programming
between
and
development.
development. But if you think about this, you guys, you know, we're losing money hand over fist with the cable companies. We're not building up that type of funding. So in my mind, as the executive director, with the reports I've been giving you, a lot of our effort should be going into development. That's my thought process, because we're not gonna be able to offer programming if we don't have the money to do it. That's my guess. So
But I feel
now-
like development and fundraising or finance are kind of can go together because they're both money related. I see just dollar signs.
Totally different things.
Okay,
This is oversight.
that's okay.
This is
So
oversight.
reconciling, yeah.
This is development.
Okay, bringing in the money,
Yeah.
but it's still, and then membership to me goes with bringing in the money in the development, but what do I know?
So in my mind, honestly, we've lived without a finance subcommittee for a while. We have a treasurer.
Right, that's why I don't.
Do we
understand.
really need this to be one of our priority subcommittees right now?
I was thinking of it in that we can combine finance and development.
We're not combining subcommittees.
We're not doing.
Not doing it.
We got cut off.
We're
Weird
identifying,
world.
right? So if we were to take all of these votes out, where would we put it?
Out of, okay.
Personnel still, that's where mine goes. Well, listen, you have to have a good policy internally, right? Yeah, I mean, you do.
So you saying we don't at this point in time?
We
No,
know
I'm
for a
just saying,
fact.
any
I mean, that's fine. I'm willing to
that's where
take
my
mine to
goes.
development if you
Always goes
think
to
that finance needs, I put 2 in
It's a
finance.
discussion. This is a discussion. The
There's
only
only,
thing that's not up for discussion is combining subcommittees.
we only have so many people right now, so
Right.
nominating has to be number 1, and then development, I guess, is number 2.
But if you combine
So what
nominating and finance together.
did you
it would be
originally
okay.
have,
Yes, that was my
you-
2.
Yeah, so we're gonna take your 2 out.
Why can't you combine them?
and
Just
put-
pretend. There's only so many of us. We can just pretend it's the finance instead of development.
We'll do what we want.
Because they serve 2 different purposes, and for our reporting, annual reporting, we have to have different committees doing different things.
Cool if you wanted to.
So do we have a number 2 yet?
I don't know who
It's
had
not part
one
of
for
the
finance.
conversation. I don't know why we're.
No, we're not saying.
Somebody
that now.
talk to me about why we're getting stuck up on this, because
You
I
have,
think you can see the road we're trying to go down here, and I don't know why we're still talking about combining subcommittees. We don't have to activate subcommittees right now.
I think
That's my
I
point.
think that's a better way to. put it.
We
Not
don't have to
activate.
activate them.
So what are the ones that need to be activated right
And,
now?
and that's what I said, is
Yeah.
what are the ones that need to be
Yeah.
active right
Yeah,
now?
let's exercise.
So does that change your personnel vote?
No, I'm
always
still
gonna do that.
staying
Who
with
else
personnel. I did. I
Is
voted.
comfortable moving their finance vote to a different committee? Where do you wanna put
I
it?
did have one in there. We'll put it in development. But I'm not moving,
Just
I'm
make-
not
yeah.
moving on from personnel. And that, mine was number 1. I was one of the. number
Yeah, you
ones.
were one.
Who else had finance? Lori,
I can switch it to development.
you want it in development too? What number was it? Do you remember?
I think 3.
All right.
Who else had number 1s?
I did, I put finance as one.
But I think,
If you were to move it to a different committee, which one do you think it would be?
I guess nominating.
Nominee? You already used nominee for your list.
I think I said 2.
Yeah. You can keep it in finance if you want
I'm
to.
gonna keep it in. finance.
Did you have one in finance?
No, I did not.
I
Jen,
did. Yeah, I'm good. I'm leave it where
you're
it
gonna
is.
leave it where it is. Jenny,
Sure.
did you have one in finance?
For what my,
Did I what now?
Did you,
I didn't just hear what you said.
did you choose finance as one of your top 3?
Yes.
Do you want to keep it there or do you want to move it to something else?
No.
All right, so now we know nominating and development are 2 that we should have active right now, right?
Yeah.
So now we've got a tie between finance and programming. So programming, we know we want to grow into a very large group to get as many voices to the table as possible. Do we have the bandwidth in our first year to activate that? No,
No,
right?
No.
But we probably do have the bandwidth to activate our finance group, who has the second most votes. Right? And that way, whoever's working down here could be communicating with up here. And we could be, having reports to our treasurer. Is this making sense? Are we seeing the pattern here? We don't need all of these active right now. We're a member-based organization, but only one person chose membership. as
But
a
I still think
priority.
it's hard. I think programming is important because I don't want to be on, like, I have a hard time getting people involved. Or I don't want to say hard, but I think it's easier if there's good programming. Like, I think they go together. Like, you get more people when they see UMA, like, having things you want to watch, right? And like availability. So.
Yeah, I think as non-staff, when people ask us about UMA, they're asking like what kind of programming UMA offers, what they can come and learn about here and stuff. They're not really caring about the UMA's finances.
Well, and I think the programming committee would be the youth workshops, right? Educational?
Nope.
No?
No?
I think it's also what's
The
on.
programming committee is not deciding what UMA is offering. The program committee is literally going out to the entire boundaries of Malden and having conversations with our community members going, hey, did you know that there's a community media center there? And if you didn't, what type of programming would draw you there? Do you want to learn podcasting? Do you want to learn how to do animation? Would you like a theater class? Did you know that they do a poetry slam? It's literally beating the streets and having conversations. Then this group comes back together at the table and says, here's the conversations I had. And you start identifying.
It's community engagement.
It
Actually, it
is.
is community
Yeah.
engagement. It's not, almost it is community engagement.
Yeah.
But you're actually helping us identify what type of programming we should be offering our community, rather than us sending out surveys, rather than us trying to beat the streets, getting this conversation.
So rather than us telling people what is already being offered, it's more finding out what they want offered.
Exactly. But at the same time, having that conversation, but it's, they're interested in podcasting. Oh, did you know that UMA has a podcast suite?
Yeah, it's engagement.
It's engagement, but it's also mining the information for us so that we're not beating our heads against the wall, having youth workshops and nobody's signing up for them. Or offering a camera class and nobody walks through the door. This happens all over the country, by the way. It's not just here at UMA. We can offer as many workshops as you want. Doesn't mean people are going to come to the door. This is also that really great organizational communication tool of meeting people where they are instead of expecting them to come to us, right? That's the role of programming committee. It's not to define what we're actually offering as programming, it's to find out what our community wants us to do.
But is it that like, hey, I go talk to that person, which is part of programming, right? And what are you interested in? And great, do you want to be on the nominating committee? Like, I think they go, like, do you want to come join and like, be part of the subcommittees and so forth to get them engaged so then later.
Separate things.
I think I understand what you're saying though. Let me see it in a different way and see if this captures what you're saying. Thinking about meeting someone out in the community who is hot to talk about programming and saying, look, we're trying to fill out our subcommittees. Would you possibly consider being on our programming subcommittee? The board provides feedback like you just did with me.
Yeah, you can absolutely do something like that. But then whoever's
Is that what
on,
you were saying?
right.
whoever is on this committee would speak to the nominating chair and say, hey, I got this name, you need to follow up. So you're not putting double duty on people that are on these committees, right? And it's going through the proper chain of how to communicate with our community.
Oh, so that you have a name and an interest of a person, you send them to the nominating committee and the nominating committee gets their information and then cook them.
Because the nominating
That's
committee,
ridiculous. Like, I have a relationship with people. that I've developed the 20 years I lived in Malden. Like, I'm going to talk to these people and ask them in. Like, Jonathan is not going to call my friends up or neighbors or people.
Actually,
That's like
that's actually what
awkward.
I did though, as a nominating.
Yeah, but I
chairperson.
don't. But Lori talked to me first.
Yeah, no, but how I did it when Ari was the president was, Ari would recommend some people, right? So she would say, "Hey, I identified this person who was interested or whatever." I said, "Okay." So then, what's their phone number? Let them know that I'll call, right? So I did, and
yeah,
then hold on,
but I knew
hold on,
you.
that's different. But even I didn't know Brian from a hole in the wall, and I
Right.
remember Ari had recommended. I mean, he stands out in my mind because we talked about him. But I remember when Ari had recommended me to recommended him here, and I said, "All right, never met Brian before a day in my life." But I called him. I said, "Hey," I said, "Look," I said, "I'm the nominating chairperson." I said, "This is what we do at UMA." I said, "Any interest in joining?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, then I have to call a nominating committee meeting."
And there's
And
next
that's what I
steps and
did.
next steps.
I just
And-
don't
and
know.
actually
I don't
Tina said-
always think it. I just don't agree that
Mm.
always works. That's all. And I'm
So-
allowed to feel that.
You are allowed to feel that way, but what I'm trying to accomplish here
Right.
is that the governance that's been missing from this board
Right.
forever,
Okay.
right? Because if we don't have this makes everybody's job so much harder, right? Because you have somebody coming in from the community to join our board meeting because they're interested, and the nominations chair has no idea who this person is or whatever. They're welcome to watch our meeting online at any point to get an idea. When you start inviting people to the table, they start taking over time and space, and we don't get through the things that we have to get through and that kind of thing. We don't identify if they are a time, talent, or treasure that we want on our board,
Okay.
right? This process, this group right here
Is
goes
vetting.
through that.
Sorry.
Pretty much.
Vetting
No, actually, it
committee.
is pretty much.
Let's
right?
rename it.
I
The
think
va-
though that your process is right. That's the way boards are built, is like, oh, I know someone, I meet them on the community, I have that conversation, and then I come back, and before I've said, would you
Right.
like to do this? Like, there's been a couple of people that I've
Like-
recommended, and I've said, hey, so-and-so, I met out in the community.
Right.
They might be interested, how do I get this
That,
name and
and that was
person
kind of my
to-"
point, is that, regardless of these subcommittees, we do that in our meetings. Hey, I've heard this guy's interested.
Yes.
What do you think? So that's where I was going with that,
Yeah,
too.
I
think
guess
we're
it's-
all kind of.
We're already programming in a way, even though we're not an official programming
Right.
subcommittee.
But when I think of programming, yes, you're right. Every single one of you should be talking
Right.
about what the community, you're doing that service. This is this is expanding on that. That's getting more soldiers on the ground kind of thing, right? You're more voices to speak to more community members in their own language, in their own community. That's what this committee should be.
And like maybe somebody that would be interested in being on a nominations committee might have like an HR background. Somebody might have like a legal background,
Right,
like,
right.
and so you're bringing those people in for more of a focused thing at first, but then they may end up joining the larger board.
Right.
The other thing about the subcommittees is the subcommittees don't necessarily meet once a month for 2-3 hours. And so you're asking for a smaller commitment to get them engaged in our organization and understand who we are and what we do, kind of thing. And then that builds up a chain of command eventually into that governance. Okay, so we need to make a decision between finance and programming. What's the number 3?
I say programming, but that's.
I do too. I feel
'Cause I
like it
never
has
put-
to happen for nominating to go forward. Like, and even though it's not like a huge group like we want it to be, initially it's there. I mean, I guess I'm just saying it's important whether it needs to happen, but I feel like we as a board need to have conversations like we're the programming committee until we get a broader.
That's great. That's
great. That's great feedback.
So
And that's also an opportunity to talk about getting a youth member.
Mhm.
Imagine having them talk about what we could potentially do or want to do for programming.
So Felicia, James, Jenny, and somebody else kept their vote on finance. Is there anyone else that wants to change their vote to programming? Or you want to keep it on finance, because then they're gonna stay tied?
I take it out of development.
I already took mine out,
Yeah.
so.
No, you're still in personnel.
Oh, no, I took out one of my votes. I'm still the person. I'm telling you, I can't. You'll never get me to move on from that.
Or do you all think this is equally or more important than the programming committee?
I don't have a vote in finance.
I'm
anymore.
talking to
Okay.
Felicia,
Okay.
James, and Jenny. I don't know who the fourth one that kept the finance.
Laura, was that you?
No, I think I changed mine to development.
Is it Felicia? Wait, right?
All right, well, we'll just get rid of one, then that means programming,
Right, that defaults.
right?
James, why didn't you vote for programming?
I'm questioning how much my voice matters at this table.
It
I
matters
mean,
a
I
lot.
feel that I'm making decisions, I mean, I could argue about finance, but is that really my place here? I feel
Yes,
that,
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
that's
I
can.
feel, let me finish. I feel that this is more on the weight of the board,
Mhm.
right? In terms of, okay, this is, I want the board members to agree, yes, this is what we should be focusing on. I don't feel that, hey, what, I think you guys should, I feel that, it should be on your shoulders
But
to
you're-
get
but
this
we're-
through.
I think it
Does that
goes-
make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's
we're
gonna
doing
be
it-
your perspective.
I was just
Exactly.
gonna
Yeah,
say
but we're
that.
That's
doing
all
this
we're
to
asking
help
for.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So it should
I'm-
be, you should have the input.
If you
too.
want like a half a vote just to feel better. I mean, something to like.
The whole point of having you here is to have your
Yeah.
perspective
Yeah.
and feedback. It's not saying that you're making the decision for
Right, yeah.
everybody, but to hear you say, okay, so let's say we got a group of 20 people that are meeting on the regular and they come back to the table and then they come to us and they say, James, everybody wants like 6 workshops. How do you feel about that?
No.
Bring it on.
It's nice to
You
learn
do it,
things.
yeah.
Right? So I think understanding, and that's the whole point of having staff here tonight, is to say, that's fantastic. Come to us to those ideas, but the reality of the situation is we can't make those workshops happen right now.
Mhm.
Like, how are we supposed to do that? But having that information and understanding that maybe we shouldn't be having workshops, maybe we should be having these workshops that our community members are telling us they want us to have. Or saying, okay, when can we fit this in our bandwidth and create this because our community is telling us they want this. That's the whole point of this.
The reason that mine is still in finance is because I feel like the more people that understand the numbers and know what goes into the numbers, the less I will have a group of development committee folks who don't know what the numbers are. I would rather have someone be on the finance committee, know that they're a good, know what Tina goes through to do the bookkeeping, understands how we go through our audit process, how our numbers have changed. And then if they want to talk to me about development opportunities, that's great. But I think everybody, that's a shared thing. And then to have a specialized group who have that focus and expertise and like want to build on what we're already doing, I think it's great. But understanding the numbers first is way more important to me.
And I understand that, but I think for the time being, year one, that could be activated under the executive committee.
I also wonder if there's a need for a subcommittee to focus just on finance, because we get a report every month, the entire board. So is there a real need for that at this time?
I think an overview, yeah. I mean, and I take that
overview.
on me, like maybe I know I need to show up here more or create some time. So that way when we have our board meetings, it's a better overview.
And
But it would be nice to have another person, I'll say that. But I don't think we need a giant, I don't feel like as a finance person, like I need 5 people, like that would be insane. But like if I'm sick for whatever reason, somebody could take over. That would be helpful for 2 people to come down and learn it together or something, But that's my opinion, sorry.
Okay. We're out of time. And so what we've sort of established is that we know nominating should be meeting immediately, talking. What does that look like? We know we should so actually let's start here. We know we should be designating chairs for each one of these committees. Now I forgot, we have our neighborhood view subcommittee too, right? And that one, much like the executive committee, doesn't go away. That one just stays, which you are currently the chair of.
And I don't, yeah, okay. good.
So my goal was always with the subcommittees is to only have one actual board member on each subcommittee. Because I think I've come from board practice where they have a bunch of board members on a committee and it just overtaxes you. Or you have to be on a bunch of different committees and it's just ridiculous. So my goal is to have only one chair board member on each committee. So that, and then that person is responsible for getting out there and finding more people for their committee. Now, programming, I could see doing a chair and a co-chair because it's bigger, right? That's my thought process. That's my recommendation. Ultimately, it's up to you to decide how that looks. But we know right now, we need these 3 committees established and working to make this strategic plan successful this year. So however you want to do that, address that. All right, so we have a whole other part of a discussion to get into. Do you want to take a 5-minute break and get back into this discussion? Because I gotta pee, so.
Okay,
I was gonna
use,
ask for a
use,
little
use the
break.
bottle.
Hey.
Let's just wrap.
Oh. See, I'm ready to like keel over and pass out.
Does anybody want a coffee? I'll put the coffee machine
No,
on.
thank
Oh,
you.
no, thank you,
If
but I
I drink it
appreciate
now,
it.
then.
I had
I'll
some
just-
before I
We also
came.
have water and like tea.
I
and
always thought
stuff.
you said wine. I was
Yeah,
like,
that's what I was thinking. That's
I
what
was
Josh-
almost like, yeah,
I
I'll
told
take some.
Josh,
Not
they really
helpful.
need like to
Yeah.
have a rotating
Why am I so
drinking
sleepy?
Yeah, I
in the
know,
back
yeah,
of City
yeah.
Hall, so you can
Next time
go
I'll-
like
next Thursday, I'm gonna need it.
have a beer while you watch
Got a
them.
couple of bumps
Are
right
you?
now.
Yeah, yeah.
No, joke, bad
It
joke.
could be a fundraiser too for the
Being
city.
recorded.
But,
If they served alcohol in the back of City Hall while the
Ooh.
council meetings are going on, and
oh
you just
God, I
like.
would not trust that.
I
No, I would, yeah, I would not.
Be
Sorry,
aware.
We have
Okay.
some?
I believe so.
I didn't know we were
We could
recording.
pause.
I didn't know we were recording.
I thought she said
Yeah.
it's recording.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was
Yeah.
paused.
Do you
Can we
want
edit?
Do you want to pause it? I don't know if you
Uh,
can.
I didn't even know. I see,
Yeah.
the thing is, I don't know if you,
Thank
yeah,
you
it's
for
all right.
that. I still think it'll be a good
I'm
fundraiser.
always aware. Sometimes when we
I
have
actually
actors on set and they have their mics on, they have to go to the bathroom.
Oh, you can hear everything.
Sound guy has to turn. You're not all listening in.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Somebody peed with their microphone on, is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Oh, my professor did
That
that. My
happens all
torch
the time.
professor did that.
I guess we're recording, so.
Yeah.
My torch professor
It's
would
only
do that
for,
in law school.
Really?
He was like, hold on. He was like an old guy too.
Okay,
He was like, hold on,
Oh, that's
please.
better.
And then all of a sudden, like, he wouldn't
because I
take
was
his
saying a
microphone off.
fundraiser for
Yeah.
city
Yeah,
council
we-
should be
Like, we'd be sitting there,
having a
like,
bar in the back for people to
and you could-
spectate.
You could, some one time. I
It's a
remember
scene
he-
from a movie. I know it's been in a
pro
movie.
thing.
He's like,
I don't
listening
know,
to
it's
his-
just who?
Oh my God.
Singing,
Yeah,
listening.
I have a great programming idea for any upcoming election. Forget votes, we do wrestling or
Yeah.
Jello-
That's funny.
mud or
He
jello
was like, all
wrestling.
right, let's
There
talk
you
about
go.
negligence. And we'd be like,
Chat.
yeah, oh, we will. all
Charge
right.
admission.
Like, Negligence, we left that thing.
That could be a good fundraiser.
that Piper.
Yeah, that's so
Oh, I mean, he was, I don't even know if he's still, I hope he's still alive.
That's on the
He's
recording,
not
too.
alive now, but-
That's great.
And he was-
Well, they're
he-
at
he
least
looked like
cute.
such
That's why I
an
was like, oh,
old,
we could do a
like, law
dog
professor,
parade.
like, he
People
had
like to watch
suspenders with the
dogs.
We are
trousers.
actually doing
And he
a
was
a doggy
this was
fashion
at
show
Mass
at
School of
Maplewood
Law,
for nice.
and
Yeah.
he
Yeah, I
would,
was
he
gonna
would
say,
come
are you-
outside and he would
do you like
smoke his
the
pipe,
idea
like, his,
that
like, pipe.
Yeah,
you guys
yes.
are working out?
Legit smoke
You gotta
like
stop
pipe tobacco.
emailing me at my
They actually
Uma
smell
thing
really
and
good.
use the
That's
Yeah.
rare
daycare one though.
anymore,
Oh, yeah. He would
It's
just
like a
smoke the pipe
conflict.
I didn't know that, I didn't know that one, so
No,
that's why I
that's
did
good.
Real
both.
professional.
I got
And
you.
Oh, yeah.
If you want
Yeah,
Uma
he's
to have
the
a
best.
table or whatever in addition to
Yes,
that,
we will be having, I think we're gonna do exactly the same thing we
Yeah.
did last year with the photo booth
yeah,
thing.
that was popular. I think.
Yeah, it gangbuster, man. It went off like crazy.
We're adding a doggy fashion show or something.
Nice. I have like Neighborhood View lately. I think they've been doing a really good job. So if anybody talks to them regularly, like just the upcoming votes, and I think they
We'll
should-
talk about it at next week's
Yeah.
actual board meeting.
That was the plan. That is the plan to get the candidates who are eligible for the Jason Lewis's old seat in
Mhm.
here.
that I want to.
I don't know when their signatures are due
This
back.
is- this is a
April?
puzzle.
Is the election in
That-
November or something? When
I
is
go
the
home.
election?
No,
My
they'll
sister-in-law
be in a
puzzle.
primary. They'll
And
primary in,
She solved a mystery, but it was in German.
usually they
which we
primary
didn't know
right
about.
after Labor Day weekend. It's like usually like the
So-
Tuesday
Oh,
following.
that's
My
right,
next
'cause
door neighbor
school's
But it-
out.
But the
His
election
parents
is
are
in
German, he
November.
goes there
Oh,
all the
no
time.
kidding.
General
Yeah,
election,
yeah.
but it's the Democratic
Like the
primary.
Did they
Okay,
translation
I
for
said
you?
September
Yes, it's
first.
February
Yeah.
20th.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
While
that's so
we're in the
funny.
meeting, he just
So it'll be
responded,
interesting to see.
explaining the puzzle.
Yeah.
Tina, if you
How
don't,
many
Oh, my
people-
word. Oh, that's
if we
great.
can't talk about it,
That's
that's
so
fine,
funny.
but
I
have
was
you
like,
had
wait,
all the
what?
signups
I
for
see
the
messaging me,
Yeah.
programming? You
Council-
kind of made a
Councilman
comment
Allen
and
and,
then.
Kate.
I'll talk about it
Of
next
course,
week.
Okay,
he's the one
sorry.
that came outside.
Where's she from?
That's
What town?
His
Melrose,
name
she
was
has
before he
Melrose,
died.
Okay,
and then
that's
one
reasonable too.
precinct in Malden.
Was Lewis?
Yeah,
in
yeah.
that?
Lewis was in
Mm.
Winchester.
Go some.
He had a sliver of Winchester, so, but it doesn't
And
sound
my
like
other
any
neighbor
other
was the one
reps.
that-
Oh, no,
that
wait.
called me.
Is there another?
The
You know
other
what?
side
There
of it.
actually might be a third person
You
who
know
ran
Dave
that. I thought it was somebody out of
Who's
Reading.
it?
No, no, never
David
mind.
Camille?
No, that's not true.
He used to be a war
Never
country.
mind, that's not
Um,
true. There is no other person. It's just those two. as of
No,
I know
no
right
faces
now
coming up in
that
the
I wanna-
Right, well,
Rolodex.
For
Well,
Lewis's seat, yeah.
they have a garage, which is,
So it'll be
You
interesting
weren't
to
here.
see
That was
what-
kind of a
when I go outside, I'm on
surprise.
the top
Out of
it, I can
nowhere.
see on top of their garage.
literally out of
Okay.
nowhere when
It's closer to
I
my
got his
side.
retirement
What's he
email.
doing?
And it's
You
like
know?
separate driveway.
Good for him.
Yeah.
12
I
years
guess
is a
he's having some
lot.
It's a long
weekend,
time to be.
so he
in.
I'd be
has some
tired.
park, he
Yeah.
just put on it all of a
I
sudden.
think his
And
kids
I went
now
outside to
are.
come here.
College or
I think
out?
they're,
college
you know,
and,
yeah,
like,
they're either bound to
he's
go
gonna
into college. I think they're high
legitimately-
I
school
think-
going
I
into
said,
college.
I
at
thought they
15.
posted them
keep
graduating
the
last
garage.
year.
Oh,
but I
maybe.
could be
Oh,
It
wrong.
said they
maybe.
disappeared the other day.
So in the interest
I
of
said
time,
it's
I want to
driven,
keep
though,
going,
it's not
please,
covered in
so that we
leather.
can be done. Felicia should be joining us shortly.
And I think it's white.
So we're gonna move on.
You know.
We're gonna move on to how can the board support, what board support do we need for our strategic plan to be successful? And again, we're just talking about year one. We're not trying to pile every single year in. So in this section, I want to shift our focus slightly. And while staff will lead much of the operational implementation of the strategic plan, the board plays a critical role in helping ensure the organization has the leadership, governance, and resources needed to succeed. So I'd like us to talk about how the board supports the strategic plan in 4 separate areas: governance, recruitment, fundraising, and community outreach, right? We've already talked about all of this stuff in what we've discussed today. So what governance work should the board prioritize this year? Some possible themes could be board development, orientation, committee expectations, that kind of policy review, or board accountability. We're just gonna throw out ideas. Like I'll say for something I've been wanting for a long time is an orientation packet, right?
For board members.
Board members.
Can I add on like packet of papers? Can we have like, is that the
Mhm.
packet? Like I think of I'm reading material.
Yes,
Got it. Okay.
exactly.
And or that could have QR codes to some links that maybe Iman does a video about what it's like to sit at a board meeting, or Robert's rules or something like that. You know, we can help engage.
I mean, that is something that actually Tina and I did talk about, coming up with, hoping soon. Actually, I was hoping to talk to you guys about that next week as the agenda item, so thanks. Thank you very much. Yep, that was stealing my thunder for
One of
next
our
week.
newer board members came in and did like a tour. They looked at our website, they had a bunch of different questions, but it would have been great if when they came in for the tour, they then got to have coffee with, whoever the nominating committee was, and say, like, ask those board kind of questions, like, what do you expect of me? How much time is this? What kind of things do you want me to plug into,
Because that's not really a conversation. I mean, I want to meet them and have one-on-one conversations, but that's not really a conversation on my shoulders, right? Because again, the board is supporting the organization. So you are doing different work in support of what we're trying to accomplish. So I can talk about it, but I'm probably not going to be able to talk about it as well as you will be able to because you're doing the work. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So governance, making sure, so we've got our bylaws updated. But interesting fact, I went on the Attorney General's website this morning and I couldn't find our list of officers.
Oh, that's on there.
I know it is,
Yeah.
I know it is, but they changed it. So now I was like, great, now I'm gonna have to
Oh.
call the Attorney General's office and find out why, like, our thing isn't on there. So,
Hmm.
but in my mind, I was like, oh, actually, the clerk should be doing this, sort of thing. So thinking about maybe identifying responsibilities,
Attorney General or Secretary of State.
Attorney General.
Oh, I would go
We
on
file
Secretary of
everything through
State.
the Attorney General's office and I was on the Secretary of State's website, it's not there either.
Oh, I'll show you something later. I'll have to try it,
I didn't know we had to file for.
because I just updated it to add, Hilda to it. It was there.
Anyways, we can talk about it.
Oh,
later.
yeah.
But I think identifying responsibilities, because it goes to
You can just put response.
it goes to Eden's point earlier about what does the board want to hear for a finance update, right? Like, so what does that look like? And actually have that written down somewhere so that when Eden never leaves us, the next person that's never gonna take her place knows what's expected of them when they step into that position. So I think identifying responsibilities is important.
Yeah.
Not only in our executive level, but from all board members, right? What else in governance could we focus on this year?
I think bringing that up, like exit packet, like
That's a great
Big-
idea.
if you're gonna offboard, that's fine, and I respect that. But how do you do that? Just like how do you join or become a member? Become a board
Have an
member.
internal
Exit.
process.
Oh,
Right?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
Yeah.
whether it's spending some time and showing whatever you're doing before you leave, or making sure somebody's familiar with.
Or understand as a checklist, understanding that we have to replace somebody on our bank account or update our
Right.
laws, this is
Yeah.
what happens when a board member
Yeah.
leaves.
Right.
Yeah, great. That's a great idea.
I'm not gonna wait till.
Yeah.
And Jenny, do you have any thoughts on board governance?
Not at this time.
Maybe later.
What do you
She's under
think?
subpoena.
Again, you took my presentation
thunder
back
again?
in because I wanted to talk about that for next week, and it was going back. I guess I could talk about it now, but go into a conversation that you and I had a couple weeks ago, which was coming up with that, right, and using
The
technology. Yeah, using technology to create what's the orientation packet look
Mhm.
like. Meaning in the sense of, I mean, I don't know, we're being recorded, obviously, right? And I
Just
don't-
internally.
all right, so it's no secret that ChatGPT knows a lot about this organization, right?
Yeah.
So using the resources and using that membership
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
have with that through ChatGPT to create a
Which I
list
started,
of.
it fell. to the
There's
wayside.
great
So
AI
that's why I
tools
say-
out there that are board specific though too, so you
Right.
can always go online and like just Google like board governance orientation
Right.
packet, and there would be some sort of sample, you could throw it into AI
Well-
with some UMA information.
Well, how I like that when we were talking that basically that there's an account and how many times that Tina has used it. So it's like, great. It's like, so maybe this will
Oh,
actually
yeah.
make it a lot easier for
Sure.
AI to, as opposed to going to like my generic and being like, please come up with, although I'm sure it would, and I'm sure it could, but if the information is already inputted into this program,
Oh, just
Just
trust
makes
me,
it
there's
easier.
another living soul in this conversation and it lives on my computer because it knows everything
Yeah.
we've been through.
but that's something that, when I think, when I got on to the Malden Housing Authority and I was saying to you that how I got that, it was a little packet of like local housing authorities, and it was a book. It was a lot, but the information I felt like was redundant in a sense. I mean, a lot of it was helpful, but a lot of it was redundant versus talking about a 1-pager or a 2-pager. To your point too, when you said, is it gonna be like a lot of pages? It's like, no, maybe a 2 or 3-pager or something like that of what's expected, what's going on, what this is, what's expected out of you as a board member.
Or just
So
a
we
question
have
of-
a one,
Yeah.
like at least
Yeah.
you have agreement when
Oh,
you
yeah,
sign.
and I'm
so
sorry.
This is different.
And I'm
This
sorry
is-
too, and then also too, I'm sorry, on top of that as well too, for board governance is like going back to kind of when we were talking about being out in the community and talking. That there is a 1-pager of information that we have so that it's easy that we can talk about,
I think under recruitment.
Yeah, you're.
I was getting that.
Yeah.
So I stole your thunder,
You
good.
did. I realize one thing I think would be extraordinary helpful when we talk about orientation packet, exit packet, even more so checklist, orientation checklist or onboarding checklist, exit checklist, right? Did we do this, this, and this, and this when they came on?
Position checklists. Yeah. roles and responsibilities.
I would say a transition memo too, if there was anything that somebody was working on. So if you're gonna onboard checklist, you need to also have a transition checklist as well. So the
Well,
person
I
who's
said
leaving.
exit,
Oh,
onboarding and exit checklists.
Would, do you think it's worth it for branding purposes to have board name tags?
That's an action item.
Maybe when the board gets bigger.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, what else for governance? Look, and you can look at your strategic plan too. There's a whole section on board governance in there. So we already know a couple of our board members are going to that conference. So board development.
What conference?
There's an
Conference at the end of this month.
online-
Well,
And next
external.
week, was it next week or 2 weeks? Was
I
it
think it
End of the
starts in
month.
a couple
Who
weeks,
puts
yeah.
it on?
24th? I forgot the company now.
Just
I
curious.
forgot who the company was, but it sounded pretty, I can't go. It's the only thing.
There's community engagement in here. Is that part of governance? That's on there. Okay, got it. Because I was like, what?
No, there's an actual section in our strategic plan talking about board development and governance.
Oh, here we go.
Is that like the last page?
Oh,
You want this? This
Is
page?
that the strategic plan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Strengthen board recruitment, governance practices, and leadership development. Being the focus of board governance and leadership development.
So I think we've got a pretty good
Pretty much does it.
list.
Yeah.
We've already got our bylaws done. We've got our conflict of interest done. You
Board
know,
agreement,
huh?
board agreement's done,
Agreement.
board agreement's been done.
You know, I think another thing that might be beneficial because we don't have it in hard copy or as part of our policies or packet, annual filings or annual requirements for our board, I think would be helpful to identify, right?
We signed it at our annual meeting, but maybe.
Right,
we
but
could do
having
it
that
yearly.
listed out for
Right.
the incoming president to know, okay, I
Okay.
gotta identify that after our annual meeting, we have to do this, we have to do this.
Do you have terms in succession?
Oh,
another
that's
good
a
Yeah,
really
that's a
good
good
one.
one. We have terms.
Visual, like,
Clearly, I mean, yeah, we clearly. gotta
where
do
are
it,
they
yeah.
saved?
Yeah,
Succession, you would have to know.
succession, we
who's-
definitely have to, well, succession would be if you're looking at this guy right over here, if I'm gone.
In terms of terms, like I try to update it
I
every
know
time, like every November. So I have a list of
No.
everybody's.
But do you as a
You on
group
life support.
want to, like,
That's not how you.
we had some who came on at a certain time and then didn't lapse,
Right.
and then some
Right.
are only two, like, as a board, you wanna simplify
Take
that?
up
Do you wanna
Lori's,
make it
right?
more?
I think you should just,
But
if somebody leaves, that's the end of their term and a new one starts.
Alicia, I'll send you what I wrote up for.
yeah.
I don't particularly need it. It's a board discussion.
Yeah, no, it
It's more like, do you all know that? Do you have it written down somewhere? Does it have a
I've
just got
process?
it.
Yeah,
And it's
send it
not
out to
part of the
everybody.
bylaws that we have to take up. I thought getting into the nitty.
Yeah.
I was almost positive that I was under the impression that it was in the
Do you
bylaws that
want
if
it?
you were filling, if somebody stepped down and you were
Right.
stepping
You
in.
can clarify
you were-
that.
Yeah, you were filling out.
So we have a term, I just put down term list.
There you
So
go.
these are check things that we
Orientation
wanna,
packet, right,
you
would be
wanna
part of it.
accomplish this year.
Yeah, do you
Right?
have your current
You wanna
slate?
put together an orientation packet, you should probably put together an exit packet, we've already got board members going to a conference, that's board
This is the one
development.
from.
We should have an updated term
Yeah,
list and
that's
then that's where you
what I-
have that conversation, right? So
That's like we-
these are all working
Some of it
items
I
that
see.
you as
Some
a
of it I knew, but I
board
do this.
should create a
Update.
a recurring workshop and say, okay, these are the things we're tackling this time. Right? This is the work you should do before December, the end of December, January 1. Not a lot, I don't think. But some of it. And some of this will roll into year 2, right? Because we can't, it's hard to have a succession plan when you have 6 board members. But if this works, then this will come out of it.
Right, yeah.
But even if you said, even if amongst the board members, you said, oh, well, this relates to this, so maybe these are the things we want to tackle first, or these really, oh, this has come up now, so we need to address this most, so let's document it. Like where and how that lives and who does it, we can help put it on the website if it's something you want shared, but it's you guys, people to do it.
And I'm going to put all of this together and send you a summary like I did the last one, right? So that'll be a guiding path for you to do this work. All right, let's talk about recruitment. 1 pager, talking points.
There you go.
Youth programming.
Yeah.
Youth programming.
So
What does that mean?
We can do offer summer youth programming. So like summer camp that kids can
We're
come
talking
learn.
about recruitment to the board.
Oh, well, that's true. Okay, never mind.
So what does this board need to accomplish to recruit more board members?
I still think it's about what we offer in general.
you know that we have summer workshops.
Right.
I think our plan was to get 2 new board members this year that were in something
Right. Okay.
there.
That checks off one of those that we identified.
If I'm
Hopefully two.
out and about in the community, meeting people and see someone that I think you might want to have a conversation with, is that helpful?
No,
Okay.
no, it is.
He just said
Yeah.
no.
Of course it is.
The way you said it, I was like,
I think it's the same way
would've
as like the
said yes.
nominations. If you
Yes,
find somebody,
yes.
send over to whoever's nominating at the time.
I think that's helpful. I go back to the idea of, where we even have people in here too as well, right? Like talking to them. But I think anywhere we are obviously talking with them, right? Any events, any fundraisers, any whatever the hell it is, right? I think it is helpful to be out there talking. And obviously going back to the recruitment with the 1 pager or some summarized talking points, right? I mean, it's helpful.
It's really interesting to hear, like, though, there might be someone out there that's got a photography bent or is a lawyer and is looking to just like expand by joining some nonprofit board. A lawyer could help you with governance stuff. That could be, they can't?
Do
Didn't,
not do both.
didn't
Either do one
Jordan
or
do
the
that?
other. I can't do both. So I can't act as a lawyer and also be a board member. It's either or.
Oh, so they can't help advise?
You could, no, you can't give any legal, that's why we have a whole legal department. That's why we outsource to Rob
Oh,
DeMarco.
gotcha.
How did we do it with Jordan?
Really?
No. There's Jordan.
Again, that was
Oh, interesting.
probably not
Okay.
supposed to do that. I'm
So
gonna tell you that
you
right
brought up
now.
A really good point that we are getting a lot of bodies through our doors. More and more people are engaged, and us as staff should be talking to these individuals about, hey, did you know you can be a board member as an UMA member? We have 2 membership seats that are dedicated to your voice and asking, trying to have that conversation with them. That's something that we can do to help support this item on our strategic plan.
Something that I don't recall ever being tried, but could there be a meeting with board members here to invite people to come in and learn about the board?
That's a
That's the whole-
fantastic
that's-
idea.
That's all the point of doing that
Yeah.
too.
What would we want to call that? Meet and greet?
You could, no, you would just call it open meeting.
A media mixer.
No, if we
A
have.
board
if we have a
meeting.
board meeting.
Yeah, board
it's
meeting.
a board-
Mixer.
yeah, right.
Meet
Yeah.
the board meeting or something?
No,
Well,
because
I
we
don't
would
know. I
actually
don't think
meet-
you want to have
No.
a board meeting. I think you
No.
just want to like
Meet.
have
Yeah.
it be more casual, right?
Yeah, a casual meet and greet.
Recruiting, it could be
Meet and
like-
greet
Yeah.
recruiting. Do you have any interest? Come talk to us.
Pledge. Like we'll do it like
Come learn
fraternity
more.
sorority style.
Like a learning meeting, just
Who pays them?
Like skull and bones.
Sorry.
No, I mean, that's the whole point of like taping the
Being
meeting, right?
recorded too.
I think maybe it's probably a better way to say is maybe not enforce, but maybe highlight that we have a public comment. And if people feel so like they can watch, and if they feel so strong about it, they can publicly comment Or they could
How about
join us.
encourage engagement in our meetings?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, I
pretty
was thinking
much,
something
that's what
different. I
we're
was
doing.
thinking more of like they come in, not for a meeting,
Yeah.
but more of just come
That's a-
in, talk to whoever can be
We
here,
also have to
Could-
remember- we
learn
also have to
about
remember
it.
too that if we.
So
if
let me
we-
point out that every time we have a board meeting, 3 or 4 days prior to it, we put social media posts out
Right.
saying, hey, don't forget.
Right.
Do
Yeah.
you share that?
Yeah.
On your social media?
I
Does
haven't.
everybody
No,
does?
sure.
No.
I actually do.
And making a comment saying, hey, did you know WUMA has a public comment section that you can talk
Yeah, that
about?
I don't do, because I don't want anybody commenting. I'm serious. So some comments you just don't want,
Yeah.
no.
You're
Yeah,
talking
some
about
comments-
encouraging
secret.
Yeah,
engagement.
some comments you just don't
I
want.
Yeah.
think if we have if we
Want
have
you to
an
come and
event, a
watch.
meeting, or a day where we know we're gonna have a lot of foot traffic, it'd be really helpful if anyone had time, space, capacity to have like open office hours. And we could know this months in advance, so it would fit in someone's schedule, but you could just come and talk about, okay, as board member, we have the strategic plan, we're trying to fill out these subcommittees, do you have an interest in? And we could list the different areas we're looking for folks.
I mean, open
Could-
office hours
could-
actually
But we
pretty good.
literally did that at the media mixer. We had you and I think it was Lizette at the time. And how many people did you have come talk to you?
Offhand, I don't remember. That was like, what, a year or two? I don't remember.
Yeah, it was
offhand.
last year.
Was it already last
Yeah.
year? I
Could
don't
it-
remember.
But let me jump
Oh, yeah,
in
that
on
was
this.
last year. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You should
Because
bring up
here's the
idea.
perfect
Sure.
opportunity. Here's the conversation I was trying to encourage earlier is we are in desperate need for people to volunteer at these booths. And here's your opportunity to literally the only thing we have to talk about right now outside of the youth workshops and our memberships is the fact that we need people to join our board and our subcommittees. And so we have dedicated days and times where you will have people coming up to you, talking to you and asking to engage with you. Because we're gonna have a really cool photo op anyways for them. That's low hanging fruit to me. That's an opportunity for you to do exactly that kind of conversation.
I don't think that's the places you meet board members. so.
There's literally the one I'm gonna talk about tonight is a volunteer fair. It's a perfect opportunity to talk about volunteering for a new board member, right?
Can UMA help socially with that? Can we
Yeah.
post, are you in the law field? Are you a?
No, you just said, no, I think you just said.
We'd
you
love
could-
to have new board
We can-
members.
we
We're gonna
can
get
put
engaged, we're gonna
something
get
out.
engaged more with your
We
community.
could put that something out, but it should be either the nomination committee or should be a task for you to draft. You understand that? So we've identified what board members need.
Yeah.
So if you want us to put a social media post out on our UMA page,
Yeah.
fine, but you gotta write it.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I'm
It's
saying.
easy.
Right?
I'll do that. in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I would say just stay away
Right.
from
But-
just stay away from identifying. Because some people might be like, oh, I don't fit any of those categories, as opposed to being like, hey, you interested in becoming like a member, like giving back to your community, like, we're looking for people, we're looking for people who are.
Well, here's an
interested.
agenda from next week then.
I think testimonial from what and how you interact with us or why you care is super helpful as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, we can just put a general thing.
Yeah. that's
We
what I'm
can
saying,
talk
yeah,
about
we're
that
talking
anyway.
about that, yeah.
I mean, could we add something like where we come to board meetings with like, I mean, I guess we're gonna have a nominating committee, but like bring 2 names to every board meeting and we put a time on our board meetings. I don't know, maybe I'm getting too in the grass, like to be discussed later or something like that. So we're continuing trying to bring ideas or people to the table, like maybe not.
I think the better way would be identifying what event is going on around the city
Okay.
at that point, and hey, who can go to this?
I think that's
Any
next
thought on
week.
recruitment, what the board could be doing
Because we have that on the agenda.
to recruit board
right?
members.
Always. We can talk about that.
You've been here a while. Do you have any
Oh,
idea of
really?
like something that was successful in the past?
Thinking about some of the stories that I've heard. And none of them are positive. No.
But when
I
you get-
kid. I don't have any insight to this. I honestly don't know. Yeah. I'm just gonna stop there.
I was recruited for having kids in the youth programming at the time, So maybe this summer, if there's any families that you identify, we could reach out to.
But see, you're putting that back on us. Is there a way you could identify people in the school
Well-
system that would be, that you could have that conversation with and then
I
or
know half
invite
the
them in?
So
or-
again, we're looking at this as sort of a task list of things that you want to accomplish before the end of the year. So we don't have to add anything else to this. But this should be actionable, identifiable items that you want to try to accomplish. I personally think the booths are important.
I find talking to the other organizations really helpful. I think, I don't remember having had, other than getting to sort of practice how I talk about UMA, like a transactional thing where someone became a member or came back in or that kind of thing. So I think that the presence is a great thing, and I think that we do have a really cool kind of selfie thing. But perhaps, you know, I gotta put my marketing hat and think about a way that that could be more actionable for us.
And I want to say, which we did, we actually created videos and put them out on social media the day after. We used that photo booth. And we would tag the event and stuff like that. So I want to talk about the reality of doing booths for UMA. So we have 4 staff members, and we probably have at minimum half a dozen, if not closer to a dozen events happening in the city from in a very short amount of time that we get asked to go to and be a part of. 4 staff members. 90% of the time they're on the weekends. And they're for 2 to 6 hours long.
What'd
We
you
don't
say,
have
2 to
the-
6?
2 to 6
2 to
hours
6
long.
hours.
I'm sorry, I'm like-
Depends on what it is. We
26 hours
don't
long.
have the
Yeah.
bandwidth to do this, but I will guarantee you if we are not there, we will be asked why we weren't there.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a lot of pressure for 4 people to be under.
Mhm.
Right? So I've never said that before, but that has been my experience here. And we want to be at all of those events. We want to be the central hub that everybody comes to. But the reality of their situation is we can't put it all on staff. So I'm going to make up a list of events that we're going to be asked to be at and put it out to the board and ask that you volunteer your time for a few hours at the booth. It's just kind of that way. Or we don't do it, sort of thing, if we can't do it. And then just, I got to be prepared to be questioned as to why we weren't there. Which I can, because we don't have the money, right?
So there's a bunch of events that I'm already aware of, like there's block parties GMAC is putting on. Pride is in the parks coming up, the farmers market's coming up.
This
My son-
volunteer fair on May 2nd is a Saturday.
Yep, I'm unfortunately away.
And it's a bunch of
Christina-
nonprofits coming and looking for volunteers. So it's like the perfect event for us to be at.
Yeah,
But we're not set up right now to take in volunteers where we get the question all the time, but we just don't have it right now. But you are all literally looking for volunteers to join these spots. So it's a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
spot. That kind of thing. So that's what I say. I'll make up a list of, I know the stuff that we need to go to and try to get people to sign up for a spot. You know? Okay.
Tina and I basically shared them last year, so, and like, obviously, thank you, whenever.
And
you
Jenny
come
did a
with
lot
us.
of
Yeah,
them. too.
Jenny
Jenny
did.
did a lot of them
Yeah.
with us, so. And Lori did too.
Yes.
Okay,
Take
action
it away.
items. Just because of what time it is, I wanted to ask, James, do you have any input on fundraising or community outreach for action items for the board? Because I was just gonna say, you can take off if you don't. Because you've been here for quite some time.
I've got nothing, no, let me think for a moment. I just feel so out of my element in
Oh,
this
sure.
kind of
Yeah, that's-
discussion.
that's
I mean,
understandable.
this is not really the way I'm wired. I don't have, I have trouble seeing big pictures. I'm like more
Sure,
like,
Yeah, no.
put on
that's
the blinders
absolutely
and just do the
understandable.
small, detailed stuff like a good worker bee does.
Or if you want to think on those two and email me any thoughts that you have for action items, I can include them in.
Yeah, the fundraising, man, for the way we can schmooze with some politicians.
Schmooze, I like schmooze.
I think that's really good, because advocacy and putting your name and face out there
Yeah.
really does help.
Yeah, Z. No,
Yeah.
no, yeah. Oh, Wick was in
I love it.
Whatever.
Schmooze.
SKI. That's the
Oh,
robots.
shit, no, no.
Schmooze. That should be the only thing underneath there,
Yeah.
honestly. No, I think, grant research was incredibly helpful,
Oh, good.
you
Yeah,
know?
Okay.
Brian.
Not that,
and
not necessarily to
Lori
say
and-
that, we can act on it right now, but the research is top notch or identifying. The one thing we have found is we'll get, suggestions on what we should fund for, or what we should go for, but there's no real why we should go for it, right? So then we have to come up with an idea or a program and stuff like
Right.
that. So identifying what our needs are and then going out and looking for grant funding or grants that would fit those needs. And then coming to us and saying, hey, I found this grant. Here's what I think you could actually apply it to. Understanding that we are not wanting to create new programs right now because we don't have the bandwidth, that we have a strategic plan in place. So even using that as your guiding force, knowing, okay, these are all the things we want to accomplish in the next 3 years. I wonder if there's any grants out there that we could apply for. Looking through that, identifying it, pinpointing to where it would fit, and then emailing us and saying, hey, I think this would work really well.
And you can always email me too, if like you don't want to go down the complete rabbit hole, because I have access to grant databases. I'm always looking for things, but sometimes there's stuff I haven't heard of, or sometimes like I loved it.
Right, but that's why I was saying about taking the next step, because we can get a link to a grant, but then we gotta go and find out what is this grant? What does it mean? Why would we
Yes.
go
yes.
for it? So if we can even get a little paragraph along with the link saying, hey, I looked into this, I think it'd be a great fit for a neighborhood view. I looked into this, I think we could sponsor the after school program through this grant. And here's why,
Okay.
right? That is super helpful because that already points her down the direction she's got to go to spend. So she's not spending hours trying to figure out how we're going to make this grant submission work.
And I was just saying, you could always shoot me a quick email if you had a question, whether it's on my radar or not, before you did that.
Because I should.
Because that is part of my job.
Yeah.
And
You
some
just
of the
pretend
ones
we
that I've
didn't
sent
know
in the
about
past
it.
have
Yeah.
been good, and some
I'm sure she
haven't
doesn't know.
been needed.
So fundraising, what else, outside of what else for fundraising for actionable items? I think forming and activating the development committee is probably a smart step.
Yeah.
Right?
What do they call it? DAF?
Yeah.
DAF. I do with DAFs.
So we do have donors through our DAPs because the donation comes in a certain way, and that's actually how you know. Because there's nothing you can go out and do, like, so I've done a bunch of different workshops now on that. And this is what all the fundraisers are talking about, like, how do we get to these people?
Right.
And so there's all kinds of,
Is that actionable?
schmooze.
What if we hold an open house for people with DAFs? I'm not even kidding with you either. No, I'm being serious. If you could
It really
identify
is
them.
like,
Mm.
you would be identifying folks you know who have a probably higher net worth income or own a business, or, have some interest in coming in and, seeing the facility, seeing kids in action, like maybe they have an interest in youth programming, or they want to buy us a camera, or, something like that. They probably have a DAF. But just inviting someone in to be like, okay, we just want your check.
Yeah, we just lock
We
them.
want to engage them first.
Yeah, we just lock them in the door. Lock the door behind them.
I think ideas are important too. I know that's generic.
I think that's where the development committee comes
Yeah.
in, right? So the development committee's responsibility is to think about how to develop funds. But also, if you're gonna suggest an event, you're running that event.
Right.
You're doing all of it. Staff isn't doing that. That's been an issue in the past. Or if you're running a program, some sort of online giving campaign, you're doing that with very minimal.
Right. But I was even thinking more specifically, and I don't getting in the weeds, like library is holding a wine tasting, right, for Friends of the Malden Public Library. What does UMA have that we could advertise with to like donate that people might want to bid on? Like, is it a tour of UMA, or I'm just making it up. Like, I don't know, like, I don't have the ideas of knowing what UMA could offer up that like people might bid on that makes people say UMA's name as advertising, right? Because the library's like, who won the UMA, like whatever, or who won the gift card to whatever restaurant? Like,
That's a great idea.
like an
and
experience,
opportunity.
not things.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I don't need more stuff. I don't want a hat that says UMA. I don't want a T-shirt that says UMA, to be honest.
It's like a
But,
raffle
like-
for
But
a
like an
3-month
experience
membership or
thing, like
something.
could UMA, I don't know.
So
I don't
we'd
know,
be
it's just like-
offering the library some sort of package of in-kind service, but then we would get promotion and be in front of the Friends of the Library people.
It's just in any event, right?
Yeah.
There's lots of
That's
events that
development committee
offer
coming up with these
Well, I think
kind
ideas.
of,
it's
you know,
like-
but this is might be more specific development committee, and then it goes with that, and then this is
That's a
something
great
I would
idea,
say.
though. That kind of thing. Like the idea of us creating an event is harder because a lot of nonprofits that have the capacity to create events have an event person or an event coordinator. It's just me.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So having a development committee that could say, hey, so-and-so's having a high-end fundraiser, could we donate something?
Right.
Or some like, maybe
A
it's a.
podcasting lesson, or I don't
Yes,
know.
Yes,
Whatever it
yes,
is.
Yeah.
All right, so
Sorry.
keeping back to actionable items. Jenny, do you have any actionable items for the fundraising portion?
So donating a dog. Or leaves a dog behind.
No, I'm kind of racking my brains and I'm not really coming up with anything.
The one thing we understood that, I just had it in my head for a second. What did I talk about? Fundraising, checking your membership, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
check your membership.
Check your membership. Fundraising.
I still think
You
there's
had a great
underwriting
idea
and-
about, I think we should focus on a sponsorship plan, right?
Yes.
And I think that could be something totally separate from the development group, like, I mean, it could be part of the
Yeah, it
development,
feels like it.
but the sponsorship underwriting thing is a big thing we've been talking about for years. I think that's, again, that low hanging fruit. We might not have time to develop it, but the development group could kind of outline it and say, you look confused.
Sponsorship, I mean, like Xfinity presents Urban Media Arts.
Yeah, we could have a sponsor and that would build our new studio.
Okay,
We could have a.
just
sponsor-
wanted, I didn't understand the context.
Sponsor also would literally just donate money to us as a sponsor, and we could put together a sponsor wall, right? Underwriting is different. Underwriting would be stuff on our websites, banners and graphics and stuff highlighting like a local business. That's underwriting.
Okay,
Which now with our new playback system, we could actually include into our info
Mhm.
system and
Mhm.
on our new skin for our video on demand service.
Mhm.
So there are areas,
okay.
And Malden events.
and Malden Events is a huge one. So I think that needs to start becoming a focus. So it'd be really great if this committee could kind of look at that and have a conversation with our fund development specialist about areas where we could develop that. And then help make that plan so that we're not trying to make it while we're trying to do everything else here, right? So, what would I,
Sponsor underwriting.
yeah. Not underwear plan, underwriting. All right, activation items under fundraising. I think that's a good list for the first year.
Schmooze.
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 I think that's the important one.
Let's highlight that one.
So everything else follows under that way. I guess grant research is a schmooze.
Information gathering. is
We're
huge.
getting to the finish line, peeps. Finish line item, unless anybody else had something for fundraising. My page. Community outreach. How can the board help expand women's visibility and relationships in the community? We've already talked boatloads about this, but actionable items again. Like, let's say you've got your one pager, but your one pager isn't just for board recruitment. You know, does everybody understand who UMA is, how we're funded, what we currently do, what we're currently offering? Could you go to anybody in our community and answer all 4 of those questions?
So give me the questions again.
Who is UMA?
Yeah.
What do you do? What do
Okay.
we do? How are they funded? And what are they offering right now?
I don't know offering right now. I know in the summer, but I know, right, like you could come in.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could answer those questions.
That's a really great point, right?
That's
So
why we need that one
understanding for
page.
community outreach is, we all have to be on the same page of what we're saying, so that we're not saying different things.
So that one pager needs to be.
You need a one pager and talking points down here
Yeah.
too, because this is recruitment for the board. This is totally different when you're talking to community members.
I think there's some overlap. between
Yeah,
what it
there is,
Yeah,
but-
right? I mean, there
It
is.
is slightly different.
A little bit of a Venn diagram.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. There's a question. Actually, I think it would go under governance. Does everybody here know how to access the board of directors email?
No.
I think we need to start over with that.
I'm getting this.
Haven't looked at it.
I think you need to decide as a board if you want to continue that or if you just want to use your personal emails. I was set up before I got here.
It-
I don't know the.
Oh, I didn't know
It's
there was
so
an
filled
option.
with so much
Yeah.
spam.
It's-
There is.
Yeah, it's,
Because I keep getting the, somebody's like the board of directors email and it's all spammy.
Yeah.
I don't
The-
mind using
the
my
one I
personal
have for
ones. It's
clerk
too
works
easy for
fine,
me,
but the one for,
So I'm gonna
The
put down
board.
DOD email and you guys decide what you
Yeah.
want to do.
Yeah.
How much is it anyways? How much you
It
pay?
doesn't cost anything. It's just.
Get- can we like start a brand new one so it's not completely
No, I
spam?
don't think that's a good idea.
That's
No.
not, that's
Yeah.
definitely not a good
Just-
idea either.
Yeah. delete
All
it.
right, community outreach, actionable items. I think getting this established and activated, right? Programming.
Do you all talk to each other outside of board meetings?
In the sense of what?
Mm.
I mean,
It's a conflict of
do, but-
interest, right? Isn't it?
Sometimes you have to be
Be
careful because.
But
if
I
we
talk to
follow
Lori a
open-
lot.
Yeah.
If we follow open meeting
Not about
laws,
Uma.
not everybody can talk at the same time. Because then you'd be conducting board business at that point.
Wow.
Yeah,
so-
Yeah.
Same
Kind
thing
of
with the
lucky.
city council. same thing
They
with the school
can't,
committee.
yeah,
We cannot
that's why
all-
they can't.
We can't all meet up and have a drink.
Right, that was an
Can't all be
issue
sitting
with
in people's
school
basements.
committee, because he put something on the
It's like
agenda,
under
Peter
the
did,
quorum knowledge,
right? And then
like,
nobody
you
could say, oh, I
Only if
didn't
you're
see
under
the,
quorum.
like,
Under
details
quorum,
about it, so
under
then they
quorum.
can't, like,
Can talk.
all
Exactly.
contact.
You and I.
Yeah.
Oh,
You and I could,
Yeah,
yes.
we need to be
Yeah.
really careful,
Yeah.
like, I think
Three of us
three.
go have a
Yeah.
Yeah.
beer.
But,
Yeah.
yeah.
we used to
But-
put those with the.
But otherwise, I
Yeah.
have my
the
wallet.
form,
on, I
the
can't- I
submission
gotta
form
go.
for,
I think
I have to
it's
get up
helpful
early.
as
I have
you
a
think
meeting
about
tomorrow.
community outreach,
Let me see
the
this.
places that you're
Wonder.
already going out in the
Yeah.
community, so like
never
you
just
talked
one.
about Friends of Malden
That's
Library,
cool.
other things that you're
That's
involved with
cool.
outside
Yeah.
of
Foodie.
UMA that like,
I'm
is
just
there an
seeing this one.
association, is there a
Yeah.
film group you're
Just read it.
part of, a professionals group,
Right.
you know,
What are you talking about?
thinking about where
What?
they're
Oh,
out in their
okay.
communities.
Yeah.
If
Please
they're
come.
out in their communities talking, like, they might have
Click on
ideas
it.
for how we can interact or intersect with UMA. Bring that back to the board to talk about.
I'm ready.
It's community
How do we
outreach.
create that as an activation item? What is that as an activation item? So that's me is having the program committee activated, but also all of you activating the same mentality, right? So.
I just saw it.
I don't know.
It might be program committee activated, but
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's,
but yeah, no, bringing back the ideas you're hearing from bringing back the ideas to the table is part of your responsibility, right?
Right.
As a board member.
Do you have space in your agenda where is that new business for you, or is that
Yeah.
Is that how
Can
is
we
I
that?
think
bring
that
up
probably be
table
under new
items?
business, if you said, hey, I met this great person, they wanna do this and this, you wanna bring it up in a,
New business.
it would be under, when he says any other new business, that's when you bring it
Okay.
up.
I would think it might be more specific than that, like, I don't know. Community ideas or something like that.
Again, if you go
That's
back to
different.
having a work session once every 2-3 months.
Yeah,
That's when you can have this.
Right,
kind of-
yeah.
But email, you can
that's
email.
true, that's true.
Yeah.
I could.
Yeah, it's neighborhood.
All right, anyways, community outreach, activation items. What are we doing?
So I think it, well, then it goes back to booze or, you know,
Yeah. it's a
going
lot
to
of
events,
recruitment
you know?
in community outreach.
You know what I was thinking about? Maybe you could even, you're talking about identify, where did I see identify? Identifying partners, donors, grants. Maybe you task yourself, each of yourselves to come to the table with three of each potential. And you talk as a group of who we could engage with. That's engagement, right? That's a taskable item in your engagement area.
Is there, and this is different, but like knowing the existing membership, like I love maps, but maps of like where the members are, like, do we know where, I assume most are in Malden, but I'm sure that's not completely true, but is there like a certain, I don't know, where do they live in Malden? Or does that, I guess it doesn't
We
matter.
don't
but-
have that data, but
Okay, then that's not something we can do. I just wondered, like,
Was a concentration of
if
most
there's a
people?
concentration or, you know, something to work from, or I don't
Why
know.
don't you add it into your board agenda that you'll get like some membership data and statistics for
They're
like,
all in
from
Ward
from
3.
us, and we can tell you a little bit about like so many people live, we could do an analysis of so many people live in this street, so many people live in this neighborhood. I can't give you a map because that's
That's
not my
fine.
But you
expertise,
can't like
but-
say do it by ward or anything.
That's
I'm
You
sorry?
you wouldn't have the ability to like separate it by ward.
section.
A
okay.
ward.
Like,
Yeah,
That's a
That's
lot of
even
work.
harder.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
I mean, there's no relevance behind it. I mean,
Right.
if you remember, if you live in Malden, you can.
Yeah.
But
and
I
we
could
have
tell you-
beyond Malden memberships, we
Yeah.
have, yeah.
I can give you like a little, like, we have X number of members, this is how many are youth, how many are seniors, how many are donors.
Are you thinking anything as an actionable item that they could provide you for the new CRM? I've already put down.
I think we
create a
should
list
have
of
one
partners and
person from
donors.
the development committee be able to access it, but volunteers can as well, so if people have interest in looking at the CRM, because you can set up donation pages, so if you wanted to run a donation campaign, you could do it. Separate.
That's not what I asked.
I would want one person on the development committee to have access to the CRM. And be trained on it. You wouldn't have to always do stuff for data entry, but they would at least have access.
It's called CRM.
Yeah.
CRM just means customer relationship
Relation
management
management.
tool. It's called Charity Proud.
CRM is good enough for this.
What else for community outreach as an actionable item? You want to try
Do
to
you-
do a media mixer before the end of the year?
I just thought that was specific. Like I
Um,
could name a lot of events, right? Like, are we naming events or?
I mean, I'd like to, right? I kind of like the, I
Hey,
like
here's
the.
an idea, annual meeting. We never pre-planned for the annual meeting, we're scrambling, so we should probably put the annual meeting
Well,
down.
that too, but I'd like to, I would like to on top of, I would like to host, right? We
Quarterly.
just, yeah, well, we
monthly?
just, no, I wouldn't even do quarterly too much at this point,
Okay.
given our bandwidth, but I would like to, as a board,
Semi-annual?
come up with something.
I would say start a committee for planning for the annual meeting.
Okay.
Event committee.
No, we,
Like, do you,
There's
Like,
another
if you
committee,
wanna-
but you
If
yeah, I
you
said-
think it's
want-
part of development. but
If
yeah.
you want to expand it, if you want us to expand it, we have to pay for it in
Or
some way. Do
have
you
it
want to find an underwriter for it?
agenda.
Do you want it to
Well,
have
we
more
put it on the
video
agenda,
component? Do you want to have some youth interns here? We would love to have stipend youth interns covering our annual meeting. We're gonna hopefully do another wrap up with the kids and their films. we'd love to have somebody help coordinate with parents.
Okay.
How about, speaking of, how about a coordinated effort to make a plan for community outreach? So that you're not all just running out there
Yeah.
talking to people, like we're identifying that we want youth on our board, we're identifying that we'd like people with some specific skills. How are we gonna have a conversation with those people? And who's talking to who? Maybe Malta's a small town, right? How do we know that you're not talking to the same person he just talked to last night? Right? So how do we track that? Or what's the plan for that? I don't know how to say that, but I'm just saying like. Is that
Check-ins,
part of
I don't
the,
know. A new business or check-ins, like who did you talk to at the monthly?
Well, do you have a
meeting?
goal for it? And then do you want a plan and then how
Yeah,
you would
so
track
hopefully,
it?
yeah, so.
Like measure it basically.
Goal is to have 2 new people at the end of the year. And so the new business would basically be, look, I mean, I guess it goes to what you guys were saying, just about the fundraising or whatever it was, the community outreach. About the list of events that you are asked, why was not Uma there, right? And so I think we're bringing that up and saying, look, here are the events that are going on this month, if they haven't already passed, or next month. Who can attend these? And if you do, can you please, hear the talking points and then report back on who you've talked with.
Great.
I think that's pretty, I mean,
so
that's,
how do we identify that as an actionable item? What do I put here?
like I was just saying, we have to keep that on our agenda, right? I think as part of our board meeting, getting the list of what the events are that are going on around Malden, right? So if we're meeting, so next week is our meeting.
Or do you want community outreach as a agenda item?
Whatever
We
the-
could just talk as a group.
Whatever the hell it is,
Yeah.
whatever gets it
Yeah.
on the agenda so we can talk
Right,
about
but let
it.
me
Community
ask you this,
outreach.
our meeting's the third Thursday of the month. Are you gonna remember who you talked to on May 1st, May 2nd?
Well, yeah, you would hope that you like.
Right,
log
so
that
I'm
in,
just,
yeah.
I'm putting it out there.
Well, no,
right?
that's
Yeah.
what the whole point of, so when we come back for the following month, you would say, hey, look, by the way, when I attended last month's meeting, I talked with so-and-so, or whatever, whoever the hell it is, and they were interested, and actually they were gonna come to tonight's meeting. Or whatever the hell it is. Or hopefully that somebody will update us in real time too, right?
Tell me if I'm overstepping, but I'm going to go back to governance because I think this might inform the thing that you're talking about. If you have your agenda at least a week prior and your agenda is something that's a template that you're continuously following, are you expecting the board president to do that or the executive director to do that?
What do you mean?
No, what should we do that?
We
Set
do.
your agenda. You
No,
set
we
your
do that
agenda.
now, yeah, especially I
and-
have him now, so yeah. we
And
set
you have it out a week before your meeting at least.
that.
Usually the.
We have it
Monday
a few
before the
days
Thursday
before,
meeting.
yeah. We have
Because
that.
if
The
you
goal
just-
would be, yeah,
To have
sure.
it, so do you want to put that on as a
I
goal?
feel like all of these should be an agenda, so that,
Should
because
all
they're
be.
all actionable and we need to get them done, so.
They're either gonna be on the new business or they'll be their own separate, whatever you wanna do.
If you look
Yeah.
like you were gonna
Yeah.
say something earlier.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I was just thinking back to what Emmanuel was saying about doing having like an open house, I think is the way that you phrase it. I was just thinking back how we used to do a big open house in May. It was 8 hours long. It was probably too much,
Yeah,
Not the food.
But it's just something that, we hyped up and presented to the community, and we got a lot of foot traffic in here. So I'm just thinking back to that.
It was a big draw.
Also, a lot of work, a
Yeah,
lot,
of
like
course,
months.
right.
We would start planning in February for the
Right,
May
You
right.
event.
had like things going on all day long too,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So there were
interviews
bands
and-
in here, there was food, like all the restaurants would donate food,
Yeah.
and we'd have interviews with, all the politicians and local businesses
And
and
a
people,
lot of
community leaders and activists.
Yeah.
and-
A lot of the
board
youth.
member, I came in and I interviewed the band and then I went
That's
out in the
pretty cool,
lobby
yeah.
and someone followed me with a camera and I talked to you and your wife actually one time.
That's pretty cool. I don't know if we'll have 8 hours worth.
Right, yeah, so I think that's like on the
The
other,
extreme,
the
yeah,
far
the
end of the
extreme,
spectrum,
yeah.
what can we do that's
Yeah, it
manageable,
was
but
kind of a
still,
little bit too long.
We're an hour over. Do we have other community outreach action items that we want to add to this list?
Sometimes like I don't know like who's appropriate to talk to, like, because sometimes it might be more like for you to speak to them versus the board, and I don't necessarily know. Like say the superintendent. It seems like that might be
I
someone.
actually it's your responsibility to talk to the superintendent and say, hey, how's someone doing with the school board meetings? And you were supposed to bring that information back to me when you run into them, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's
So-
why when you understand what we're all saying and you have a conversation with
Right.
the superintendent, you should actually lean in and be like, how do you think Uma's been a good partner? Is there more things that you would like to hear or see? Like, you're bringing
So-
that information
yeah.
back to
So is
us.
there a way, like, together, board and staff, come up with like a list of people that would be useful for UMA that the board could go talk to when we can?
I think that's a conversation between all of you, right?
Well, I don't know how
guess
much
I don't really
staff-
understand your question.
Like who do you think would be good for us to talk to? That would benefit you, not for you to do the talking, but
But see, now you're putting it back on us to identify things, right? When we talked about helping us
Well,
identify,
like in
you
the-
were supposed to help us.
right, in the
identify.
past, when we said we could talk to, like, say, Jim Valente. I
Huh?
think when we were gonna talk to Jim Valente, I think you had wanted to do that. So I guess it's more of, how do we know who we shouldn't talk to, that you wanna be the one?
I would never say that you shouldn't talk to anybody in our community ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is a whole other case. Like,
Yeah, I know there's different issues with
That's
that,
a
but
whole side different thing. No. You are our eyes and ears. You are literally our governing representative within the city and this community. So it is your responsibility, your job to have those conversations and make sure that we're doing a good job, right? That's that's the purpose of the board, is you're
Yeah.
governing and making sure our organization is hitting our mission, our purpose, and serving our membership. So
You're just not out in the community making promises on our behalf.
Yes.
No, I don't wanna-
We're telling them that we're gonna do something we
That
have
would be
capacity
awesome. Yeah.
for, or if somebody's presenting you with a challenging situation and wants something addressed, hearing what they're saying and possibly passing that information on to Tina to address,
and
but
not
Yeah.
trying to solve it.
not trying to
Yeah.
solve it. Like,
Right, that's the other
hearing
thing.
is different than,
Fixing.
and I guess as a
Right.
board, you should have that conversation so you can clarify your roles and responsibilities
like some,
and know that you can't, there might be a
Yeah.
happy, we hope it's a happy community member and they want to share good feedback. We love to hear that. Maybe it's an unhappy person. You as a board member can't necessarily address what they're saying, but you could hear what they're saying and pass that on.
Yeah.
And then as a board, maybe it is something you need to
Right, 'cause
address.
like-
Maybe it's something Tina needs. to
like some of the
address.
questions are like, we might get is, why didn't UMA record junior varieties? So if we know the answer, like, we can't because of all the copyright and all that, it's not allowed
That's
anymore.
absolutely, you could say that.
Right, but sometimes we need a little information for you to know what to tell them.
So I'm gonna give you the line that I used to say as a server
Yeah.
that I did for 20+ years. That's a great question. I'm gonna go find out the answer for you and I will get back to you.
I hope they forget.
No, you make a
Yeah.
point. You make a point.
Yeah, I just don't always know the right
verified
answer.
that the reason Uma didn't do this, and that actually decreases work for us too, because we get those phone calls too, or
Yeah.
we get those emails or questions. It is absolutely fine for any one of you to reach out to me with a question. Eden did it earlier this week and I've been addressing it.
And then I've been emailing you more, but.
Right? That is
So-
absolutely fine, because that tells me that you as a board member are engaged in what's happening with our organization and you're learning more and more about how we operate and what we're doing. That's really important. That's fine. Now, with that said, don't send me 50 emails a day because I'm not gonna read them all. So, you know.
No, just as the questions come up, like, we want to do the
Absolutely.
work, but we need some input.
And
Yeah.
bring them to your other board members first, because it might be
Well, yeah, I
something you
mean,
need as a board member to discuss rather than emailing executive director, but.
That's true. But I think I can guarantee you when we spend some time on this governance and we do the one pager, we do the orientation, we're not even gonna have this conversation for 3 months from now, 6 months from now, because you're gonna know everything else. The other thing is that I cannot stress enough about how much you need to read my reports, because I put everything in there that's happening pretty much on a daily basis around here. And we can spend 2.5 hours of the meeting talking about it, so it's on video if you want, or we can talk about all the other things we have to talk about. So it's kind of on you to do your homework a little bit and educate yourself, and absolutely ask me more questions if you need clarification. But I put a lot of time and effort into those reports so that you have as much information as you possibly can. Right? All right. That was a great question though. Thank you for asking that. Are we done?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah?
people are-
yeah, we're done.
All right, so. On that, you guys did great. You did great.
Thank you for the staff for saying.
Yeah.
I mean,
Thank you
Hold
for
on,
everybody
we're not done
giving
yet.
their
I
time.
know, but like, you
valuable to have
can
you.
go, I don't
Yeah.
know.
All right,
We're
so
just smooth.
before we close, I'd like us to talk briefly about next steps.
Yeah.
We don't need to finalize every committee structure tonight, but it would be helpful to identify where there is interest and where we may want to begin activating committees, which we already did, right? We already identified that we should get the program committee up and running. And what was the other?
Nominate?
The development committee,
And
right?
nominating.
And now. So the last thing I wanted to talk about really briefly is that Felicia and I have been talking about introducing a very short board self-evaluation. This will give everyone an opportunity to reflect on how the board is functioning and where we may want to strengthen our work moving forward. Evaluation will be shared with everyone electronically, and all the answers are anonymous, correct? Yep. The only way that this works is if you all do it, though, right?
Because there's only so many of you.
There's 6 of you. And it's like 3 to 7
I'll make
questions.
it 3, so it'll be 3 radio button questions, and it's sort of like you're saying yes all the time, no, never, and somewhere in between. You get ranked choice based on that, and then 3 will have comments associated. I think if you just do that, it'll be less than 5 minutes.
Yeah. And what's the purpose of the self-evaluation?
Yeah, so the way that I went to a conference on this whole topic about board and board engagement for myself, but also working with this organization. And they gave us a lot of statistics, and they said boards are more functioning and more engaged when they do some sort of periodic self-review. Having never done it, as a board member, I introduced it to the chamber, we did it. We actually get decent response. About 72% of folks actually filled it out. And we scored pretty high. And then the folks that were like, everyone I think was honest. And the folks that were like, yeah, I needs a little improvement. We can go back now and look, is there things that like governance stuff that we should be addressing? Can we make our meetings more efficient? Like all these types of things, or how do we keep people engaged? So it's an opportunity to do that. And then you can also have some sort of starting point map and see, like where do we want to improve these things? What are people struggling with? What do you need more information on? Where do we think we're doing well? So.
And we're doing that too, right? I mean,
So, yeah.
What?
It hasn't been released yet, but yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not a secret.
Not yet. No, now it's out, but yeah, we would do the same thing too.
We?
Yes, the board also.
I'm sorry?
As part, yes. We were also doing an evaluation of ourselves too, on top of an evaluation of yours. Doing your evaluation and the board's
You didn't
evaluation.
want to share that information with me?
It was not up at this meeting right here.
So I'm taking time out of my day to create a board evaluation when you're already doing it?
Well, it's part of your yearly evaluation, and I also sent one to the board as well. too.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Never mind. Okay, I want to emphasize that this is not about evaluating individual board members.
Mm-mm.
It's about helping us grow as a board and ensuring we're supporting the organization as effectively as possible. So it's overall opinion, not this board member sucks, or I suck as a board member, or blah, blah, blah.
The way the questions are asked is, do you feel XYZ? And then you'll have the radio buttons, which will say, yeah, all the time, no, never. And then like an area to comment to say, in your reflection of why you answered this certain way, what's your feedback? So.
So we're gonna try to send that out tomorrow via email to everybody's email, because you need an individual one in order to respond anonymously, right?
You do have to fill out your email, but it doesn't go into the spreadsheet. So it's like a Google form.
It's a Google form. My ask is that each and every board member have it filled out by next Tuesday at noon, so that we can talk about it at next week's staff, the results at next week's staff.
Which is when?
Oh, for you guys, never mind. This is next week's board meeting. I was like.
No, next
Yeah.
week's board meeting.
Is
So it's the
that,
19th,
well,
right,
is
so
that
we
date
have
gonna be,
prep.
when we get the email without date beyond it?
I'm sorry.
When we get the email, will you be putting like when you want it by?
It's just
What is
the time-
going on?
The timing is
When-
just, no, I'm not. to
When
myself,
I
the timing is
send
fine.
out the email.
Yeah, can you include,
Or, yes, I will explicitly say when I need it back
Okay.
by. And it, needing it back by is just so that we know, okay, by noon on Tuesday, 2 of you have filled it out.
Mhm.
Please, all of you fill it out, or just take the 5 minutes to do it. So then, because then if you have all of the results, you can kind of see where you're skewing and like where your outlier might be, or okay, we're all in the middle here. Okay, so as a board, you're completing it together, but you're doing it as an individual. Because once you see the cumulative results, you kind of, I'm like a data person, so I'm like, excited data. And it's anonymous.
So thank you everyone for your time and thoughtfulness. No, I really do want to say thank you to each and every one of you for being engaged, for staying, for really trying to accomplish this work because it's so very important. And the thing that's nice about this is that foundation building that we're talking about, right? We're really building a really strong foundation by doing this type of work. We cover a lot of important ground, identifying what the organization needs from its board, discussing committee priorities, and clarifying how the board supports the strategic plan through governance, recruitment, fundraising, and community engagement. Our next steps will be to review what emerged tonight and begin turning some of these ideas into practical follow-up action. So I'll get everything pulled together and we'll identify, I think the one thing we didn't really call out except developing the committees is other actionable items that we can start working on right now. But I think that will come after everything's kind of pulled together and a little organized and sort of understanding, and then you as a group will need to decide, all right, we should focus on the orientation packet, or let's make a checklist and really identify what needs to be done, sort of thing. That'll be up to you. We can talk more about it.
And we're not focused on who's on what committee right now at all, or?
I mean, if you are prepared to talk about who's gonna chair what committee, that's on you.
I think we have to talk about it at the next meeting
Okay,
and really nail it down.
It's been on our agenda, it's under our old
it's-
business, so it's
Okay,
been on our
yeah.
agenda. But now we can go into next week meeting and say, okay, we know we need to chairs for these 3 committees.
sounds good.
Right?
Yep. Thank you.
Awesome. Turn it back to you.
Do you have anything?
Oh,
Nope.
Oh,
I was wondering, it's like,
All right, well, we're done. We don't have to adjourn. We never took any votes in to come in anyway, so.
well, you called it to order, so then I was like,
Out of order.
Yeah.
all right.
Order.
Yeah, I called it into order, but we don't even,
Bye,
we
Jenny.
never took never did a roll call.
And I do have one nomination idea, so I don't know when a good time is.
Okay. Bring it up whenever.
Okay.
deal with this tomorrow.
Do you know Maureen Camerado?